Okay, we're on. I'd like to call to order the joint meeting of the City of Salem Budget Committee and the Salem Urban Renewal Agency Budget Committee for Wednesday, April 24th. And the recorder, please call roll.
Mayor Peterson? Here. Member Bennett?
Here.
Member Tesler? Absent. Member Nanke?
Here.
Member Clausen?
Here.
Member Dickey? Here. Member Thomas? Absent. Member Benars? Absent. Member Clem? Absent. Member Berger?
Here.
Member Kylowite?
Here.
Member Bailey?
Here.
Member George?
Here.
Member Wildfang? Absent. Member Gonzalez? Absent. Member Benjamin?
Here.
Member Clark?
Here.
Member Pruitt?
Here.
And Member Bednars has joined us as well.
Here.
Let's start off by saying the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, first action item on the agenda is to review the minutes from last week's meeting. Any motions on that? All right.
Second.
Moved by Member Bennett and seconded by Member Dickey. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. All right, and we're going to review handout material first and errata sheet number 3 on urban development.
Oh, no.
Errata number 4.
So an errata to the agenda.
It's a compounded errata.
Got it. All right, so it's actually errata sheet number 4.
Yes, it is. It's errata 4.
Got it, thank you.
Good evening, Chair Coughlin and members of the Budget Committee. I'm Kelly Jacobs, and it's my pleasure to review handout materials with you this evening. The first item, as we've noted, is actually errata number 4, and it is an errata for the Urban Development Department Parking Services Division. The request here is to add $59,550 in seasonal budget authority so that additional help can be obtained to empty parking meters and other duties that parking services officers perform. In addition to that, there are several Scrivener errors that we are asking the Budget Committee to accept corrections. And if you have questions about this errata item, of course, there are members of the Urban Development staff here this evening who can respond to those questions.
Any questions on the errata? And let the record show that Member Wildfang has joined us as well. So any questions? Entertain a motion.
So moved to accept errata number 4.
All right. Moved by Member Nanke and seconded by Member Bednars. Any discussion? Nope. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those against say nay. And motion passes. And Member Clem has joined us as well too, so we are almost full house.
Item B of your handout materials is the summary Budget Committee actions through April 17th, 2013. There are 2 attachments to the very small staff report. Those 2 attachments reflect the outcome of erratas number 1 and 2 and 3. And on the second attachment, we have the wish list, which was initiated last week with a $170,000 addition of 2 police officers. And if there are no questions about that item, then item C on your handout materials are the program descriptions for the department budgets that will be reviewed this evening. And again, staff who prepared these descriptions are here to respond to your questions.
Any questions for staff? Member Nanke.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just curious, since on Monday, Council changed the name of the Conference Center to the Convention Center, whether or not it would be prudent to make a motion to allow changes to the entirety of the budget document to reflect said changes.
It would. Thank you.
And I
for
would
thinking of
move
that.
such.
If I remember right, it's actually stated as Convention Center in my read through. I think it was preemptively written in there.
No, it's still Conference Center.
Is it? All right. I could have sworn I saw it somewhere.
I'll second.
Okay, motion was by Member Nanke to update the budget document to reflect the council change of the name of the Conference Center to Convention Center, seconded by the mayor. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those against say nay. Motion passes. Move that thing. You're gonna hit the mic.
Yeah, don't do that.
Mr. Chair,
Member Clem.
there are a couple of references to conference centers still in the
Yeah, that's great.
cultural and tourism, so it does need to change to convention center.
Yeah, we'll just make sure it's up.
Otherwise, I'm going to make a new business called the Salem Conference Center.
Uh-oh, watch out. All right, and I don't think there's any action required on B and C, so we'll just jump right into item number 5 on our agenda, which is review of the general fund, portions thereof the general fund.
Thank you, Chair and members of the Budget Committee. This is the second half of the general fund presentation. I just want to go over with you again the staffing sheet you saw at our last meeting, and the only departments we're talking about tonight who've had any staffing changes are community development, which you can see has gone down 0.35 of a position. Information technology, we're adding 2, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. Urban development has reduced their staffing by 2.5 positions. One of those happened actually at the end of the last budget year, and then there's another 1.5. And again, the total net change for the general fund is a reduction of 4.6 positions. Many of those, again, were the firefighters that were cut after the budget was adopted last year. So I'd like to start by talking about community development. The budget is a little over $8 million, increase of 4.3%. There's 74.9 positions that include the director and administration, which is 4 positions, planning, which is about 12.6, neighborhood enhancement about 13.2, and library a little over 45 positions. This community development also manages building and safety division, but that's an enterprise fund, and so Director Woods will be presenting that part of the budget later. This slide shows the budget percentage for each of these functions. And the planning division, as you know, provides development review services and long-range planning for the community. The neighborhood enhancement division includes code enforcement, multifamily licensing program, support to neighborhood associations, neighborhood partnership program, and the youth development program. In the library this year, we're continuing the same hours as we had for library services last year, 53 hours a week at the main library and 16 hours at the West Salem Library. The library has an average over 100 programs each month, an online 24/7 virtual library, and has had over 700,000 annual visitors. And so the library continues to be a very popular place in the community. The administration division provides oversight for all of these areas, as I said, including building and safety, and there are no significant year-to-year changes in the community development department. In terms of the library and looking forward, they've been working on their strategic plan. They're looking at a focus on strategic deployment of resources, which includes staff and volunteers, funding for the book collections, and opportunities to employ technology-based solutions to increase the usage by Salem visitors. And we're very excited about moving forward with that. We've had a great deal of input from volunteers and Friends members and Foundation members and community members on that strategic plan. In community development, they're working on economic opportunity analysis and housing needs analysis. I'm not working on it, but we did a placeholder in this budget. We'll come to the council in May to talk more about the reasons for those 2 studies, and then council will make a decision about whether to go forward with them. This type of analysis determines the city's employment land needs for the next 20 years. The housing needs analysis determines the city's need for different types of housing and land for that same time period. Both are critical studies that feed into the city's comprehensive plan, and our comprehensive plan would be updated. Right now it's over 30 years old, and so we're looking forward to an update of that. And then they also provide information for decision making when it comes to important zoning decisions related to things like multifamily land and industrial properties. So council will be making a decision. If they decide not to go forward, we would change that part of this budget. We're also very excited for the Nin Cessna Neighborhood Plan. It's the first time in a long time we've done a neighborhood plan, and then this is the first time we've done two at the same time. So these two areas are working together to develop a joint neighborhood plan. The work is called Looking Forward and will result in a shared vision for homes, jobs, and services. In terms of neighborhood communication, the Neighborhood Enhancement Division really works collaboratively in the community on things like after-school programs. They work with businesses to help the Neighborhood Partnership Program, and consolidations of neighborhood associations allow us to leverage the neighborhood volunteers and the city staff time to do some great work in the neighborhoods. They've had things like cookouts in neighborhoods that have had, hundreds of people, and it really does help with reducing crime as well, because it gets people to know each other and to have a good time with each other. And so that's community development, very briefly. Then I'd like to move to human resources. It's about $1.2 million. It's an increase of 6.3%. There aren't any position changes. Some of the changes have to do with materials and supplies and leave payout and some other, and PERS increases. This department works on employment, compliance with federal and state laws, labor and employee relations. We have 4 collective bargaining groups and then a large group of non-represented employees, and organizational development. I'd like to report the city's turnover rate. I think people asked last year was only 3.8%, which has been wonderful to have it that low, so we always appreciate the fact that we have such long-term employees. The department has processed almost 6,000 applications in the last year for not very many job openings, so it continues to be a busy place. In the area of human resources, federal and state laws change all of the time, and there are always court cases that dictate how we handle situations in the city, so they stay up with that. And then also look at employee performance reviews, classification, compensation, and training. This department also has risk services, and Director Manel will report on that later. So some significant changes in human resources. We're working at a Transition Planning for Americans with Disabilities Act to make sure that we really have analyzed all of our program services and facilities and made adjustments where we need to make them to ensure that we continue to comply with those laws, because that law keeps changing. In recruitment, that's a big focus going forward. As I've told you before, we have about 1/3 of our employees eligible for retirement, and so we'll be working quite a bit over the next probably 2 or 3 years on succession planning and making sure that we're training people through the organization so they can move up. And then looking at process automations. The HR's 5-year vision is to be a completely paperless office, and if you've seen my desk, you think probably I should join that effort. But I think that's going to be a great thing for HR. Classification and compensation is part of their future outlook, and that has to do with council's ask to have some market surveys so that we make sure that we're paying around the average for positions in the city. Collective bargaining, as I've said, we're negotiating with 3 units right now, which probably will carry over into next year, some of them next fiscal year, and then we'll start negotiating with the police union next winter. We've talked about ADA and employment laws, and then the department is also working. We have civil service rules by our charter for our fire department for fire hiring. And so the department is updating those rules, working with the fire department and our civil service commission, and then working on updates to our human resource policies and planning the 5-year IT initiative for human resources. So information technology. The information technology and facilities department has, for the last about 1.5 years, also had Connie Manel as its director. She really has kind of doubled her responsibilities in that area. The budget book shows information facilities still as a separate budget, and we're going to be making some more changes with that. So we'll bring in a errata sheet for this as we go, but I wanted to present it together tonight because that's how it is in your budget document. With IT and facilities, it's $9.2 million. The department has 62 positions. IT has 35 and facilities 27. It's an increase of 2 positions in IT, which I'm going to talk a little bit about now. We have a lot of Sin City police data, billing data, court data in our system, and as IT security risks become greater and greater, we feel that we need to have one person who is just devoted to making sure that we're protecting our system from attack or from viruses, so that will be one of it. And then our departments continue to rely more on technology to do their work and to reduce the number of people and to keep up with workload, and so we need to add one more programmer analyst so that IT can stay on top of that. So in IT, their primary areas are systems and programming services, geographic information systems. We have a new online mapping system that if you've looked at our website lately, I think it gives wonderful information to the community and is really helping us use data on a citywide basis to understand where we have police calls, fire calls, what our response times are, that sort of thing. And then network and telecommunication functions are critical to provide service to the community with a stable, reliable, secure network architecture. And in addition to this, you see telecom operations. We are starting, as we've talked for the last couple of years, with a replacement for our telephone system. We found a less expensive way to do this. It's being paid for out of the telephone trust fund, which all departments pay into. And so there'll be payments every year for 2 or 3 years as we implement this slowly over time. In IT, significant changes are they're putting together a 5-year technology strategic plan, which I'm very excited about, so that we can look ahead and see what we need to do in regard to technology in all the departments and can plan that wisely. Again, looking at network security enhancements so we can keep pace with new viruses and other security issues. And then a technical solutions progress. This is things like enterprise document management solution. How do we handle the increasing amount of data and documents that we have in the city? What needs to be archived? How do we handle it according to state records laws? We want to look more at mobile application development, central e-payment solutions so it's easier for our customers to pay online and use those kind of services with the city. The 2 positions that we're adding here are the result of IT having saved over $630,000 in the last 18 months by renegotiating licenses and software contracts. About half of that, about $305,000, will be ongoing savings, and a portion of that will fund these 2 new positions. So they've really created the revenue or the funding that they need to move forward with these 2 additional positions. Looking forward, security maintenance is essential for hardware, software, and network infrastructure, and we'll have, as I said, one person devoted to that. The current e-payment solution we have in the city, if you've tried to use it, it can be complicated and a little inconsistent. We lack an online billing self-service capability. So we're implementing a central e-payment and e-billing solution that we think is going to be extremely beneficial to people in our community, and it's something I know Council's been looking forward to having for a couple of years. With the increase in demand for electronic materials, the city's data, as I said, is growing exponentially, and so we're implementing document solution to that. We're going to redesign the city's web presence, and I'm very excited about this. Instead of having to know if you're a citizen that the airport is in the urban development department to be able to find it, which may not be self-evident, we're going to design the website so it works well and conveniently for the public, that you don't have to know how the organization's structured to be able to find what you need. So we're very excited about that change. Yes, okay. So I'd like to move on to facilities. Facilities, it has about a $3.5 million budget, and as I said, 27 people. It manages over 2.1 million square feet of city facilities. We have 85 facilities and structures that this group manages and takes care of and makes sure is always in good working order. They provide building maintenance, building operations management, project and construction management, and custodial services, along with building mechanical and electrical operating systems, and they do just a wonderful job with all of that. Some significant changes that you'll see in your budget, and I want to say the projects for facilities, some are found in the general fund projects, some are found in the construction project, some are in the TOT project budget, and some are in department projects. But some of the main ones going forward, replacing the HVAC system for City Hall working on for City Hall second and third floor. The main library HVAC and lighting project will be done this year. The Chemeketa to Parkade elevator projects, which you all know from the riverfront urban renewal area. The Bush House needs new storm windows and a roof replacement. The Airport Cafe windows need to be replaced. We have Americans with Disability Act improvements we need to make in municipal court and the library. The children's library will be renovated over the next year, and they're doing other things like we're taking out the fuel tank at Fire Station 1. And then we have a very long list of deferred maintenance issues with all of these 92 facilities and structures that they continue to work on over the year. So working on the ADA assessments, and we're doing a comprehensive review of that. Then again, all the building system repairs and upgrades, deferred maintenance. And then this department also relies and will rely more heavily on software solutions to help us manage these building systems and make sure that all the systems are balanced in good working order and are energy efficient. About 2 years ago, we had some ARA funds that were from the federal government stimulus program that we were able to install a lot of energy efficient lighting and heating systems, and we'll continue to make sure we keep those in good order. So, and then the last one is urban development, the last one I'm presenting from the general fund. Urban development has about a almost $4.3 million budget. It's gone down a little bit, and 29.5 positions, and again, that's a reduction of 2.5, one last year and 1.5 this year. Most of the funding from urban development, the general fund is the home budget of urban development, but most of the revenue for this department comes from the urban renewal areas. About $1 million is from the general fund, and that funds economic development in areas outside of urban renewal areas, the social service program, and parking services. So this shows again the overall weight of the budget for these different areas of economic development. Federal programs, which are social service funding, is included there, and CDBG funding. Parking is about 24% of the budget. Then we have real property services, and then the director's office and financial administration. So significant changes. Council has adopted a strategic plan for economic development where we're focusing on recruitment and retention of existing businesses as well as on recruiting other businesses to the area. An example of one of the recruitment retention efforts was the recent NORPAC announcement. That's been, city staff have been heavily involved in that, as well as SEDCOR, and we're very happy with that announcement and excited about the new jobs and construction coming to Salem. We'll also be working on the parking fine increases. We need to replace our outdated coin operator parking meters, and so we'll be moving forward with looking at new technology and equipment in those areas. So implementing parking management strategies, implementing new technology, and continuing with economic development is going to be the primary focus here. And we're looking forward. That department has a lot that they do. Mr. Wells is going to also be talking about the airport budget and the urban renewal agency budgets, and he's also going to give the budget message for the urban renewal area so that we're not repeating the information when I give a budget message and he presents the budget. So that is the general fund budget. Those are the remaining departments, and we're ready if you have any questions. The department directors are here.
Any questions? Member Clem? Oh, actually, 1 second. Before we do questions, maybe I should open it up for public testimony. on these first. So I have some people signed up for TOT, for library.
And we haven't done
And
the
for
top
top,
budget yet, but we
so-
could do the library.
Let's take the library folks first. So Mark Schwein. And if you could state your name and your ward and 3 minutes?
Yes.
And we have 3 minutes available for testimony, and I don't think we have anybody manning the lights, so we'll just try and move to do
The
it.
budget staff does it from behind the desk.
Oh, you can do it from back in the back. Oh, all right.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
My name is Mark Schweer. I am the chair of the Salem Public Library Advisory Board. I reside at 1610 D Street Northeast. I'm in Ward 1. And just wanted to say a great thank you to the members of the Budget Committee for their diligent efforts. I've been served on the board for almost 8 years, and this is the first year that I can say, hey, we don't have to cut something major from the library budget, and it feels really good to be able to do that. And despite the tough economic times that we have endured and are still enduring, I just wanted to say thank you for maintaining the support, the financial support of the library. The library serves as a conduit, as a meeting place, as a respite from, the workaday world. And we have a great staff and amazing volunteers who put their heart and soul into making that library run, and have done a tremendous job of maintaining a very high quality of service despite budget cuts. And so I just wanted to say thank you and keep up the good work.
Thank you, Mr. Schweer. Any questions from the committee? All right, thank you, and thank you for, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. George.
I just wanted to compliment the library. My wife and I are down here at the library about twice a week, and I tell you, they're the nicest people. They're the most considerate, and I just can't say enough about how much we appreciate the library. And so I was telling Jacqueline Schindel, I was happy to wear one of her labels tonight for the library because we are really big library supporters, and I just want to tell you guys what a great job you do. And also the people that are on the volunteer staff that help to keep things going. And we try to bring books down to the book sale and that support that. And so what did you bring in on the book sale this year, by the way? This
Actually,
last one.
Jacqueline is the one that would have those numbers.
Oh,
She's
I just kind of was curious.
that's the Friends run
Yeah.
the book sale. So,
All right.
And she's next.
and she is next.
So that's perfect.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right.
Thank you.
Mr. Schweer. And Jacqueline Schindel, followed by Paula McGreer.
Good evening, everybody, and I want to thank the Budget Committee and the counselors and Linda and the mayor and everybody for the wonderful work that you've put into this year's budget. You've given the library and all the 3 boards a little bit of breathing space. And that's really important because of our project that we've got coming up, which is a renovation of the children's room. So because of that, we can concentrate our efforts on fundraising specifically for that. And by the way, I'm Jacqueline Schindel. I reside at 970 15th Street, Ward 1. And I'm just absolutely delighted to be here to express the gratitude of my complete board. Last Thursday evening, we had a meeting, and we just were so delighted about coming here and expressing our tremendous gratitude. Any questions?
Any questions?
Larry, to answer your question, which you asked the wrong person, but the Friends are the ones that handle the book sales. And we have the autumn one and we have the spring one. The spring one is our shortest. It's only 3 days. And we made $400 more than we'd ever made before in a spring book sale, which was pretty good. And our bookstore set a record. And it's interesting because the food for fines that the library was collecting also set a record. So I think it was a tremendous amount of synergy. And people just came and they supported with food, they supported with buying our wonderfully delicately used books, and it was just fantastic. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Schindel. It's very helpful having those projects going forward. I know we have 3 young kids, and that kids section in the library is well used by us as well, so it'll be nice to see a renovation there.
Yeah, because it hasn't been done in over 20 years, so it's beginning to need one.
Yep, that'll be great. All right. Oh, Mayor has a comment.
Hi, and welcome. I just want to say to you, Jacqueline, and to all of the people on your board and the other 2 boards for the tremendous support that the public brings to our library day in and day out. We would not have such a jewel in our crown were it not for all of the volunteers and the consistent service that they bring to the library. And I just wanted to say a heartfelt thank you. And I think it's particularly significant that we have 3 community boards, the Library Advisory Board, the Friends of the Library, and the Salem Public Library Foundation. And I've always admired how the 3 work together without stepping over or duplicating each other. And I think it's a particular strength for us. And I'd like to say to staff, what a tremendous job you do day in and day out, and have really picked up, I know, extra things as we've had to have some reductions. And when I'm out and around the community, the library is so well loved, and I hear so many compliments about the library. So I wanted to pass that on to you.
Thank you.
All right, next up we have Paula McGurr. There we go, I said it wrong the first time.
You got it right that time. I'm Paula McGurr. I'm the Executive Director of the Salem Public Library Foundation, and I live at 3420 Dogwood Drive South, and I believe that's in Ward 7. And I would just like to add the voice of the foundation, and we do have several of our board members here, to the other support boards. And thank you, Anna Peterson, for the kind comments that you made about the 3 support boards. That's really all I wanted to do, is just add our support for the community development budget, and thank you all very much.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public who'd like to speak? You have the opportunity now. Okay, we'll move into questions by the Budget Committee. Member Clem.
Yes, it's, I'm looking at page 65 in Human Resources. I don't know if Connie's here. Or,
Yeah, she is.
I'm not trying to surprise you here, Connie, but this leave payoff is something that's...
Oh, what that is in every
yeah,
department.
And maybe you can help Linda.
Yes,
I noticed
can.
it's zeroed out in police department, and yet it's a substantial amount in other departments. So
It's if there are expected retirements, and we have an obligation to pay out any holiday administrative or vacation leave balances that people have. And so we make sure that we budget some amount for that.
okay.
Yeah, and you'll find that throughout
Have we
the
had
budget.
that for a while?
Many years, since I've been here, since before I came.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess I was thinking it was under the retirement stuff, so.
No, it's
Okay.
we
Yeah.
budget that separately.
Thanks.
Member Nanke, then Member Bennett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. 2 things. One, in regards to IT, curious to how many double monitors we employ at workstations, because I know they massively improve productivity, but I didn't know if we were employing them with the extended desktop.
We do employ them, especially staff whose jobs really require looking at multiple spreadsheets at the same time, or being able to look at one spreadsheet and do some analysis on the other one. I don't know if our IT staff, do you know that number off the top of your head? Can you come up to the podium?
Just if it's employed widely, and do all
Yes.
the employees who may need it know that it potentially exists
Right.
to increase productivity as
Well, for example, in our department, Casey has one and I do not, because he does more of that analysis. So,
Madam Mayor and council members and budget members. My name is Krishna Namburi. I'm IT Division Manager. I think more than 80% of the staff that have computers are equipped with the double monitors. That's what I heard last week. So.
Wonderful.
Member
One
Bennett?
more,
Oh,
if I
yeah,
may?
Go ahead and then.
And I know we've talked about it in past years as well, and I don't know, I'm pretty sure most of the private employers contract out for custodial, and we still have it inside. Did we get a report in the last few years as far as what the costs are and the potential cost savings on privatizing?
Have you had a report?
Yeah,
No,
I know
no,
we
haven't.
brought it up before, but I didn't know if,
No, as I've said, there are state law requirements about when we can contract out or not. And what we've done is the facilities department has done a wonderful job of reducing expenses for custodial. And as we picked up more buildings, not adding custodial staff by just the way they manage their staff and make sure they reduce their drive time or any idle time. And so it's kind of a state of the art about in terms of how they clean. So no, we have not looked at contracting out. It's a small part of this budget. We have a lot of requirements. They have to be have security clearances to go in the police department and legal in some other areas. And we've always felt like it just makes more sense to have our own staff who are trained and go through that type of background when we hire them.
okay, we may want to sit down.
We can talk about that if you want to, but we have not done that analysis.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Member Bennett?
Thank you. Mr. Chair, I had a couple of questions for the city manager, and she may want to have Krishna come up, but we were talking earlier today about IT, and you mentioned a savings that I thought was real telling that I think ought to be highlighted.
Yes, we should have Krishna come up because she's been largely responsible for that. This is our wonderful IT manager who has done just a tremendous job. So the savings last year and this year from renegotiating software and license agreements?
Okay, so what we have done, a part of those savings are like we were, initially we budgeted like financial upgrade for $800,000, I think 3 or a couple of years ago. And then last year we did budget for like $243,000 to go for consulting services outside of IT. So we did all that work using our internal resources, and we made some changes in staff assignments, and so we were able to do the project by only spending $3,000. So that was close to $243,000 savings there. And then what we did, we actually restructured our licensing model, and that gave us close to, I think, $60,000 or $70,000. And we did renegotiate. We basically went through all of our vendors, and we went by vendor when we have those renewals due. And we renegotiated with all of them, and that saved quite a bit of money for us. And we did go through multiple year renewal process, and we did consolidation of servers. And our biggest savings have been from Oracle, and we saved close to, I think, I don't have the number, but close to $100,000 on that, just that negotiation with. So it was, the ongoing savings from that is like, I think is $305,000, and that really helped us to ask for those additional resources. We definitely did not want to come here and ask for additional money. We wanted to be able to show those savings and get that resource help that we need to be able to finish all of the other projects that the departments are looking forward.
Well, thank you very much. I thought it was, when I had this outlined for me, it was like your kid, because in past budgets, thinking back to every time Oracle's contract showed up, it was just sort of like, they're back. So just hearing savings in IT after years and years of those you remember, Dan, the contracts with Oracle. I mean, this is really quite remarkable.
Right, and the other thing that I have to mention, I think some of my managers are here today. One thing that we are doing is we are working with the departments to do strategic planning for their information technology, but the one thing we are working internally for our own strategic planning, we're looking at hardware, operating system, applications, because the combination of those three is what decides the pricing rate. And if the hardware gets older, applications are de-supported and they increase the cost on application maintenance. So we are strategically looking at the existing technology, what brings that best return on investment for the city, what is the best cost-effective approach to kind of use the technologies, what we are strategically planning, and then we are actually really excited about that at IT. So,
great. Well, thank you. I had two others. One is I wanted to just check in on code enforcement.
Yes.
And one of the, for me, I don't know if this happened to anyone else, but in my ward, the most common summer call I get is not loud music, and it's not, I mean, the list kind of goes on of what we normally hear about. It is unmown, vacant lots, foreclosed homes, homes for sale where some realtors are not quite as observant as others, or maybe they're not into the curb appeal. They got a lot going on inside the house. It just doesn't look so good outside. That is an extremely common complaint, and it appeared to be the result of reductions we'd made in code enforcement. And I was particularly struck by a comment from Member Berger, I think it was Member Berger last time, on whether or not there are other ways to deal with crime-related issues and other things that go on. I mean, there's nothing like an empty home in the Grant neighborhood to attract a squatter into the neighborhood, it appears. And I just wondered about our staffing in that area.
Right. As we made reductions in code enforcement staff over the last probably 3 years, Brady, we've had to prioritize the kind of calls that we deal with, and I think dangerous buildings are at the top, and then it works its way down. But we've noticed that last year we had to greatly reduce the enforcement that we have. We more send letters when we get complaints about tall weeds and grass and other things that don't really have oftentimes the staff to go out and personally do the enforcement that we had before. So we will be looking at those priorities again to see if we need to shift them, but it really will take an additional position to be able to deliver that service the way I think council and the community probably would like it to be delivered. I think that the staff we have right now is pretty strapped with all of the issues that they deal with, and to do more, it's going to take more people.
And it's not in this budget yet?
It is not in this budget right now.
Okay. And then finally, the one other, I may sound like I'm just puffing the staff, but you really have to during budget hearing, because we miss a lot of this stuff in council and other periods. But Connie mentioned something the other night, a figure that caught my attention, and it was a comparison of our human resources staff to a comparable city, the city of Eugene. And I don't think we always appreciate how much work gets done here. And I can't remember the numbers, Connie, so I hoped you would.
Thank you, Connie Manell, HR Director. And unfortunately, I was comparing against Eugene, and we're always jealous of Eugene. And right now, they have 27.5 in human resources and risk management compared to our 13.
Yeah. And I think you would find that across the organization. They have some revenue sources in Eugene that we don't have here.
Yeah.
And so that allows them to staff at the level we really should be at. And it's just through the great staff we have here and the way departments work together, the way we have our community volunteers who help us that we're able to do what we do. But it takes a toll on people to carry those heavy workloads year to year to year without any relief in sight. So
good. And then just finally, another one. I've had a good month with city staff, I guess. Lots of good things happening in my ward. Was just to compliment particularly Lisa Ogilvie in community development. Is she community or urban development? I never can remember. Community development.
Yeah, she's a planner in community development.
She's one of the planners, but she is the person, along with Libby, the consultant, whose last name I can't say, so put together the Cessna NEN neighborhood plan process. Yeah. And I know a lot of the counselors have not had this process for forever or for at least the past 10 to 20 years. This was a remarkable event in my communities. It brought out over 80 people in an extraordinarily creative discussion of the future of two of our close-in neighborhoods and where they're looking at going. It was really, I haven't been to a neighborhood event like that, and I go to a lot of neighborhood meetings, but this one was very rich in discussion, and I think you have to give an enormous amount of credit to the folks who put it together, the staff people who put it together, and then to the Budget Committee and Council for funding this last year. This is really a great thing. So if they ever ask you, how would you like to have neighborhood plans, jump on it. It is really an excellent opportunity for both neighborhood building in terms of relationships and function, but also in developing some sort of both strategic and a future plan for these neighborhoods. It's really an exciting thing to do.
Thank you.
Member Clem, and then I'm going to jump in.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And to dovetail Councilor Bennett's comments about neighborhood planning, last year was an unfortunate year when neighborhood services was cut. And so I know Annie Bate is continuing to do that less than full time, but it's a year later. Linda, your assessment of whether or not we're still supporting our neighborhoods, and really specifically their communications budget, was a big issue last year.
You know, in my assessment, we are, but maybe either Brady Rogers or Vicki Woods would like to, they work with that more directly.
I mean, neighborhood associations are getting along, but not as well as they could, so.
Good evening, Mayor, councilors, and budget members. My name's Brady Rogers. I'm the administrator of the Neighborhood Enhancement Division. The neighborhood staff, neighborhood services staff is been mostly flat the last several years, so the amount of time that they can put into all the different neighborhoods has remained substantially the same. This year's budget, the amount of communications funds is substantially the same as last year's too. The last couple of years, we made a sort of a ad hoc decision to roll over unused communication funds, which created a lot of sort of disparagement between the amounts that different neighborhoods had and would spend in different periods of time. But it should be evened out right now, and I think things are going in, very well with the neighborhoods, and the staffing levels are pretty good there.
Okay. Thank you. So I had a question. Linda, you talked about during your presentation in the Urban Development Department with how much money, it's about $1 million for the department, I believe, and how much money goes from that to the parking fund?
So it's the Urban Development Department, about $1 million of it is general fund supported. The rest is Urban Renewal Agency supported. And Mr. Wells is going to talk about the parking fund. Do you want to just answer that quickly, that question?
John Wales, Urban Development Department. In the city manager's presentation on the general fund, she mentioned that we budget a little over $4 million in the general fund budget every year. All of that, except for about $1 million, is reimbursed to the general fund through either urban renewal or community federal loans program or what. So there's $1 million that to fund the services of economic development, the $417,000 of social service general fund money that goes to the social services program, and some of the I think the parking services fund is in there as well. What the parking fund is funded from different sources. It's funded from a parking tax primarily and from revenues, which I'll be talking about in a minute, revenues from our permits.
So we don't have any general fund going to parking services or the parking fund?
No.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. Member Bednarz.
I normally wouldn't bring this up in a budget just to learn a little bit more about the two revised neighborhood programs, but it is a matter of policy which would help the budget process and knowing where we're putting our emphasis. Could either Councilor Bennett or Linda Norris explain a little bit about what went on and how it might benefit other neighborhoods to do the
With
same?
the neighborhood plans?
Yeah.
Is that what you're asking? I'd ask Ms. Woods to come up and talk about that.
Yeah, actually, that is, well, okay, everybody. Vicki Harden-Woods, I'm the Community Development Director. I'm your Community Development Director, actually. And I actually remember being here 17 years ago, I think.
Wow.
And I was here for a job interview to work in the Community Development Department. It happened to be Budget Committee night. They were talking about the Community Development Department. And the reason I took the job is because of the kind of comments that you made tonight, Councilor Bennett. So thank you very much. It's much appreciated to hear that. The neighborhood plans are a component of our comprehensive plan. There are, I think, 9 neighborhood plans that we have out of the 19 neighborhoods, so not every neighborhood has a neighborhood plan, but they give a neighborhood the opportunity to kind of set their future direction, gives them some guidance about what kinds of changes, land use changes, they might want to support or advocate for or budget for us to work on into the future. Most of them are terribly out of date. There's one in the works right now, which is the Morningside Neighborhood Plan. And for the first time, we are just starting the Nen-Cessna Combined Neighborhood Plan, which is a great step forward for us because it gives us the opportunity to do 2 at a time. Because with 19 neighborhood associations, it takes a year or 2 to do one. That takes 19 years to get done or more. But by doing 2 or more at a time, that gives us the ability to be able to combine those and get more of them done at a time. What we do in those neighborhood plans is we work with the neighborhood association. They try to develop a steering group within their own association. They work with our staff. We develop a draft of a plan that follows the directions that's in our code about what needs to be in the plan. And they go out, do as much outreach as they can do. They get ideas, and then they make recommendations about what should be in that plan. The neighborhood actually then has to adopt the plan, bring it to the council, and when the council adopts that plan, it gives direction about what should happen in that neighborhood and sets us down a path to make changes there.
If I may? Just take a year off. I think we have 18 associations with the combining of
Oh, you're right.
Southeast. We
You're
now have
right.
SWAN,
Thank
the
you very
Southwest
much.
Association.
18
of Neighbors.
neighborhood associations.
Yeah, so this is a program, or is this spearheaded by people like Corinne and Annie, or is it?
No, this is a planning effort. So this comes out of the planning division. It's actually a land use plan for the neighborhood.
Sounds like if it's formal enough to bring before the council, then it's got to be a fairly structured.
Yes, it's a land use action, so it's subject to all of the rules and regulations that go with that.
Okay, so coming back to the issue that I was trying to talk to, it was a matter of policy. Is this a policy direction? Is this something that we should be looking at for other neighborhood associations?
The way that it's worked in the recent past is it's kind of who has raised their hand and said, we're willing to participate in this. Our neighborhood wants this. We have the volunteers to work on it. And then we've funded them as best we can as they come along. So Morningside, actually West Salem was first on that list, although it's been about 10 years ago now. And Morningside was next, and now we've gotten in Cessna.
Okay, I think I've brushed on this subject matter enough. I'll learn a little bit more about it after in another conversation.
On that line too, we might want to talk about updating our org chart at the beginning of the budget to reflect SWAN instead of the 2 separate neighborhood associations. Sidebar. Member
And
Nanki.
just in following on that, because we did do West Salem, and when we looked at the numbers of what it would cost to actually do all the neighborhood associations, your jaw would just kind of drop. So Morningside had tried to update their plan a couple of times, and we talked to staff, and in the making of a new kind of model that would be less expensive and actually get a lot better interaction with the neighborhood association as well, which is why I think we'll be able to maneuver many more much quicker and less expensively. And I want to throw kudos up to Jason Richtling as well, because we're coming towards completion on that one, but I can never get to the meetings because I'm always sitting here in a different meeting. So looking forward to what they bring forward at the end, but I do get updates as well, and I would recommend council, actually, if you want to see kind of how they're doing in the new version, to go ahead and hit up community development and see what it is the product's starting to look like.
I'll do that. Thank you. Any other discussion regarding our review of the general fund? Nope, seeing none, then I think we'll move on in the agenda to item number 6, review of the airport budget, as well as community renewal, downtown parking, and leasehold fund. Go ahead, Mr. Wiles. I think we are set.
Okay. Good evening. I'm John Wales, Director of the Urban Development Department, and I'm pleased here tonight to be presenting the budget for the Urban Development Department. That's actually broken up into 2 parts. According to the agenda, you'll see that the first part is going to be discussing, which I'm going to be discussing now, the city funds that the Urban Development Department administers, and then we'll break and take comment and answer questions, and then the second the next agenda item will be talking about the urban renewal message and urban renewal funds. Before I begin, I just want to clarify, my staff indicated that when we were just talking about the parking fund, parking services, that what I said, maybe what you said back to me weren't quite the same, so I'd just like to clarify.
Okay.
Parking services, which is our enforcement and our collections, is in the general fund, and mostly the unreimbursed part is probably in enforcement, so there's a piece of parking services that's in the general fund. The parking fund is funded by those other funds, which I'll be talking about, or the other sources that I'll be talking about in a minute. So I just wanted to make sure we were clear on that.
Thank you. That helps me.
Okay,
because I wasn't. I did say it wrong. Back to you. What I want to thank you again for being here. We've got my management team here: Doug Rux, the assistant director; John Pascal, the airport administrator; Renee Frazier, the manager of finance and administration; Judy Wargren, our downtown revitalization manager, and I think Rena Peck is here too from our federal programs. So very pleased to have them. They are the reason urban development is as successful as we are. They've been a tremendous asset to the city and to the department. So in getting started, the Urban Development Department has a $65 million budget total. It's decreased somewhat slightly since last year. Our FTE is at 34.5. That's a little different than the number the city manager gave you, a 29.5. This includes the airport staff, which were not included in the numbers for the general fund. The department oversees numerous funds, a total of 10. About 6 of those are in the general fund, and the remaining are in the urban renewal agency. As I mentioned back in January when I gave an overview of the department, we also administer the housing authority, Salem Housing Authority. They are a separate entity, legal entity. They are not part of this budget presentation. They actually are in a federal budget process, which is in September, so it's separate. So the other remarks will be about the housing agency tonight. As I mentioned back in January, we have multiple funds that we manage. The largest, of course, almost 68% of our funding is in the urban renewal funds. But in addition to urban renewal, we manage the airport operating fund, the federal funds. We also refer to that as community renewal.
So they're used energy. People seem to relate to federal funds, that's CDBG and home funds. The parking fund, the leasehold fund are also funds that we manage and which I'll be speaking to shortly. The airport fund accounts for revenues and expenditures associated with the ongoing operation of Salem's municipal airport. The fund's base revenues, the core revenues that we get are from 130 ground leases for building leases, which make up about 90% of our yearly total in operating revenue. These funds support the operation of the airport. For the state and federal agencies typically provide funds for capital improvements such as you may recall the terminal expansion, the current airfield electric project, and some of our other infrastructure projects that we've been involved with in the past. In addition to the $1.7 million in operating budget, the proposed construction budget of $4.6 million will fund the airport electrical project and replace the windows at the flight deck restaurant, which are in bad need of repair. The increase in the budget this year is primarily due to debt service that the airport is paying and increased contingency where we have a larger beginning fund balance. In this budget, we will continue the current level of operations to support what we call the FAA Part 139 certification. We operate this airport to a higher standard than most general aviation airports. Primarily, that enables us to have an ability to have commercial air service in the event that we're able to get that back in the future. This budget also ensures compliance with the FAA requirement and grant assurances. It will include the management of the airfield electric improvement project, which is in design now and it will be under construction this summer. And it focuses on bringing the development of the airport, focus more on increasing revenue as well. As far as significant changes, there are two primary ones at the airport. This year, the airport will begin making debt service payments on an interfund loan to finance the airport electric improvement project and to finish the environmental assessment. The other significant change is that revenue has increased, which is a good thing, primarily due to the use of the airport by Public Works. They have a facility already on the airport, and they're constructing another one, or in design for another one as well. Looking to the future, though, the airport is challenged with revenue. It operates on a very tight budget. Over the past 2 years, our projections indicate, or over the next few years, our projections indicate that revenue and our costs are going to be very close. And so the focus and what this means is that we're going to have to increase our leasing and our development out at the airport. And so we are working very closely with SEDCOR and with the Economic Development section in the Urban Development Department to market and to promote the airport for future expansion. And I'm delighted that we're starting to see some progress in this area.
Mr. Wells, we didn't hear what you said about the increase in rent.
About
the large increase in rent that you talked about. We didn't catch it up
the
here.
large increase in rent was primarily attributed to 2 leases that the Public Works Department has for a facility that they currently have on the airport and for one they're intending to build. Okay. I'm sorry.
No, thank you. I missed it.
Okay. Oops. Okay, moving to the Community Renewal Fund. Again, this is the federal, commonly known as the Federal Funds Program. This program consists of allocated funds to the city from HUD, mostly CDBG and home funds. This proposed budget not only includes the current allocation of funds this year, but also includes several carryover projects from previous years as well. The Community Renewal Fund accounts for dedicated revenues received by the city from the Department of Housing and Urban Development. These programs focus on safe, affordable housing, homelessness prevention, economic development, and the support of social services. All the funds allocated in accordance with are allocated in accordance with the priorities identified in the city's 5-year consolidated plan, as well as in the annual plan that is approved by HUD and the City Council each year. The increase in budget this year is due primarily to the large rebudgeted projects that didn't occur last year, and not due to an increase in funding levels. In fact, annual funding levels we're projecting to be flat, but may in fact decrease slightly as well. This year, the budget is focused on projects to address homelessness or those at risk of becoming homeless, support business development opportunities, and provide key emergency services to the very poor income citizens in our community. It includes micro-enterprise programs, which are designed to teach low and moderate income individuals how to start their own businesses. It includes social services. In addition to the general fund money that we provide social services, there's this CDBG money that's also budgeted for this purpose. And it also includes tenant-based rental assistance to low-income families and public improvements, such as installation of audible signals at intersections. As I indicated, the city's not yet received its final allocation for this year, for the coming year, from HUD. The budget assumes the similar level that we have received last year, but we've also had signals that may decrease 5%. And we will have to wait till the federal government tells us as to what that is. Moving on to the parking fund. The parking fund provides for the operation and maintenance of the downtown parking district and the parking structures, capital improvements to the structures, downtown police services, and contracted services for downtown cleanliness, flower basket, the economic improvement services that we have coordinated with the EID, with the Economic Improvement District. As you recall, the parking fund has struggled for many years to meet the ongoing capital needs of the aging parking structures, the maintenance needed, the services within the parking district. Our situation is that the current revenues are not sufficient to support the long-term operation needs of this fund. In 2012, the city created the Parking Task Force to review and evaluate the long-term sustainable alternative for and funding for the parking district. Those conclusions and recommendations have been completed and are going to be shared in a work session with the City Council on Monday night, and then be coming later in the spring for recommendations of implementation for the council to consider this May. The operating and maintenance administrative costs in this fund are relatively flat. Decreases are due primarily to large capital projects that were completed in last budget, 12-13, primarily the Chemeketa elevator replacements. This current budget for the parking fund maintains the current service levels for routine maintenance and parking structures of the parking district. It provides funds for dedicated downtown police services. It provides capital funding through a grant from the Urban Renewal Agency, Downtown Riverfront, for such projects as elevator replacements in Liberty Parkade in this coming year, and the replacement of the frames and glass in the Chemeketa Sky Bridge between Chemeketa and JCPenney's. It also provides funds to implement the Parking Task Force recommendations if they are approved by the council later in this spring. So what are the significant changes in the parking fund? I think I'll start with the bottom one, actually. This year, because of limited resources, we were unable to provide a subsidy to the parking fund from the leasehold fund, and I'll talk about that in a minute. That was about $150,000 that the leasehold had been subsidizing the parking fund. Because of that, we're running very low with our contingency in this fund, and are going to need to increase revenue. And we are recommending in this budget an increase in the parking tax only for the minimum for the minimum fee. The parking taxes, or let me just back up. The parking fund is funded primarily from two sources, the permits in the garages and from a downtown tax that the local businesses pay. What we're recommending is an increase to the minimum tax, which is currently at $16 per month, raising it to $33 per month. So it will be an increase of $17. The proposed increase is estimated to result in approximately $50,000 in additional revenue, and it will more equitably spread the cost of the downtown services to all taxpayers. In the past, when we've applied a percentage adjustment to the tax rate, such as 15% to everybody, the way the formulas work in the downtown tax, most of that hits the larger users. Has been a disproportional share, so we're trying to make this a little more equitable and focus primarily on the minimum tax. And so this budget recommends a tax increase. It also is recommending, or has budgeted, we have budgeted for implementation of the, as I said, the parking tax task force recommendations if the council chooses to pursue them. Excuse me. And finally, the leasehold fund provides for the operation and maintenance of the city-owned lease spaces on the ground floor of Chemeketa and Liberty Parkades. The lease revenue and common area utility reimbursements are the only sources of revenue for the fund and are used to operate and maintain leasehold areas as well as provide funds if needed for tenant improvements for new tenants. The slight increase primarily is related to several capital projects this year. We have requirements to upgrade the restrooms to ADA standards and improvement of some of the storefront replacements. Because of these projects, we're unable to transfer money from the leasehold fund into the parking fund, and that's why that subsidy was being is not going to occur this year. The proposed budget for several maintenance projects are planned in the leasehold fund, including the replacement of store front frames on the Chemeketa tenant spaces, and as I said, the ADA restrooms. In the past year, this year, this fund has remained relatively stable for many years. However, the continued vacancy of the leasehold has been put at some strain with a vacancy that we have in one of our spaces down in the Liberty Parkade, the space across from the parking, the conference center or convention center, excuse me. It has been vacant, and we've got to really, we're working very hard to increase that, to find a tenant for that. We've actually seen an uptick in activity in the past 3 months, so we're optimistic, but that's an important space for us to keep leased, to keep the leasehold fund positive. So with that, I believe that concludes my presentation on these funds, and I understand that there'll be public discussion, and be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, anybody here for public testimony on the airport, the community renewal, downtown parking, or leasehold? These are, the rest are for Todd, which is 2 away. Okay, no public comment. I saw a hand from Member Clem, and then I've got a question as well. Member Benars.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Linda or John, airport fund. Looking for the EA potential cost. Just wondering what you did put in here. And then want to ask about how much of that lease, that rent money coming in for the airport is related to new leases out there. Are you counting on an uptick in revenue on renegotiated leases from their ground leases?
We have included, maybe I should answer the revenue question first. We have included in our rent roll where the escalations, where the increases are going to be. And we have not budgeted for leases that we are in negotiation with now, for new leases or any expansions that we are anticipating. Those would be in addition to what we currently have. But the existing ones, yes, that's covered, and those are included.
And Member Klin, in regard to the environmental assessment, if you look at page 93 under non-departmental.
Oh, that's where it is.
Yes. You'll see the second line there is transfer to airport fund for repayment of Connect Oregon 2 grant, and that portions of that Connect Oregon 2 grant, this repayment is for the part that funded the environmental assessment work done to date.
So just to clarify, we're paying off the Connect 2 grant that we used. We're finally paying for the environmental assessment that's been done to date.
That's right.
Okay, and I did have one more question on page 164, John. The heavy debt service this year to the airport fund. Statement is that it's the 450-some thousand is related to heavy debt service, but page 164, the debt service and interest only 232,000. So I'm trying to understand what that debt service is. We haven't done the electrical yet, so are we making payments the year we?
Well, the debt service was for the city's match for the, is that right, Mr. Wells?
Yeah, the debt service is a loan that the city, that the airport took from the telephone fund to do two things, to start the design for the electric lighting project and to finish the EA. In addition to that, we are having to repay back the Connect Oregon 2 loan. So there were some monies that were having to be repaid back, but there were also monies that we are borrowing. And the first payment is 240, what was it, 200 and, I just had it here, 227,000.
Okay, it just doesn't show that, so it's in the detail on page 162. It might be helpful whenever we got debt service and we've got these, you guys remember these borrows, but I don't.
Right, we probably should call those out in this extra page, so we can do that in the final document.
We want to be transparent as possible.
And where that, part of that is being paid out of the operating fund. The rest of it is being paid for out of the construction fund. So if you turn to the construction fund, you would see that there's, let's see.
On another tab, right?
There's another tab on page 93. Is this in book 2? Yeah, I'm not sure if you've got book 2 tonight. In the construction fund, a portion of this is being paid for out of operations, a portion is coming from the construction fund.
Member George, does that follow up to this specific? Because I've got somebody else as well. Go ahead.
I was just wondering, did I understand you to say that your department doesn't get the revenue from the parking meters, only from the garages, or do you get the revenue from the meters also?
The meters go into the general fund.
Oh, go into the general fund?
Yes.
Okay, I'll ask the question. Okay, go ahead.
Member Benars.
So I want to have a little discussion in reference, I'm all in support of the airport, but I want to have a little discussion about what does it cost us to have the higher standard that we maintain out there for commercial air service. The issue to me is, if we don't have commercial air service, can we eliminate that higher standard? Can we save some dollars? And then the follow-up to that, of course, is can you ramp it up? Can you, if commercial service were to come to this community again, how quickly?
That's a good question. To get the Part 139 certification to the for the airport is a long process to go through the FAA. To give that up and then try to get it back would be a very difficult exercise.
We wouldn't, if we let that go, we would not be able to get it back in time if an airline was interested in coming here.
Yes.
So do you have an idea of how much that's costing us?
Well, it's affected our staffing. I mean, we are staffed with 5 people out there, and part of that is a lot of that, our standard that we're working to is a lot of reporting, a lot of extra reporting, a lot of extra monitoring, higher safety standards that we have to report to a variety of state and federal agencies on. So we are probably at a minimum staffing level to do that adequately. And so right at 5, it would be an FTE that would be looking at if we, at least if we were to drop it. But I'm not sure, and I need to do some analysis on that, whether you would recommend a reduction in staff given the other issues.
There's also a marginal cost from the fire department to maintain the rapid response for any problems, rescue problems or fire problems related to the certification. So there's some additional training cost there in the fire department.
What you've answered the question, that at least what I heard was, is it would take several years, 4 or 5 years, to regain it if you were even to go after it again. Period.
If we could even get it again.
Right, so you're better off keeping it while you have it.
Right.
Okay, can I have a follow-up question on another issue? High contingencies. I know that we have the lighting project coming in. We had a contingency of $270,000 last year, and it's bumped clear up to nearly $10,000 this year. Is that all because of the lighting project?
Mr. Wells, go ahead.
Yeah, the contingencies were primarily a result of higher rents, and that had been occurring over the years that we've been able to build. Is that what you're asking about?
Higher rents would not be a contingency.
What page are you on? What are you?
157.
So, well, let me say, the beginning fund balances will be a result of increased rents. The higher contingencies have been just to make sure that we're getting there are surprises, there are needs out at the airport that we don't always anticipate, and so we leave money in contingency to address issues that come up or projects that come up that we're not aware of.
I mean, if I look at history here, there's been no contingency until last year, and then the proposed one this year.
Well, the reason for the no contingency is that what you're seeing in previous years are actuals, so the contingency goes away, and that becomes the beginning of the beginning fund balance for the next year.
So I just didn't know if you were expecting some large project.
Well, we're doing a big project, a $3 million project for lighting, and then we've been in the middle of an environmental assessment project. We have, potentially new hangars coming online, and sometimes there are infrastructure issues related to that. So it's really, I think, a very small contingency for this size of operation for the number of big projects we're doing next year. I'm a little worried it's too low, but it's what we can afford.
Okay, but you answered my question.
Okay.
Thank you. I have a couple questions. Since we're on the airport, can you help me understand the payback of the Connect Oregon 2? Is that a grant or a loan?
We are getting reimbursed from the FAA to reimburse money that we've already spent for the environmental assessment. So that is what the grant is in the operating budget that you're seeing is coming in, is to get us reimbursed for money that we have already spent for a portion of the EA.
So the FAA is providing the money for us to pay back the Connect Oregon grant. That's where
that's what it's intent.
Well, maybe it's a little bit, maybe a fuller explanation, and we have some staff reports about this. We originally, I think in 2006, got a Connect Oregon 2 grant for the runway extension project, and we got a grant extension for that as we had to do more work to go forward with the runway extension. We have had to delay that because of the lighting project, that needs to happen next, so we've delayed the runway extension, hopefully for only a year. We'll still need to go back and get more funding, and as we had the Connect Oregon 2 grant, we needed to use it. We used it very carefully, so we weren't overusing it, but as we had to give that back to the state because we had to stop the project, couldn't meet their deadlines and go forward with the lighting projects, we have to repay some of that, and it's coming from, we're working with the FAA to get reimbursed.
Okay.
So it's fairly complicated. We've given that in staff reports to council before, and we can get that to you again.
Okay, I think that was the biggest thing, is it's been so slow as it develops, because I remember when we
Yeah.
approved the money for the environmental assessment, we were going out on a limb to some extent, and I was curious where that money's coming from. Is it coming from general fund contingency for now until FAA reimbursement or funding for that? That's what I'm confused about, I think.
It's, we have both the revenue anticipated from the FAA as well as expense of $430,000.
Okay.
If we find that repayment doesn't happen within the time frame of this budget, then we would just reduce our revenue and we'd still have the expense, but then it would come in the next year's budget.
What I think is confusing here is that part of this repayment is funded out of the operating budget, which you're seeing a portion of the EA that we have paid for getting reimbursed.
Yeah.
The other side of the equation is in the construction budget, where you'll be seeing where we are funding, where we've taken a loan, actually it's in the debt, where we've taken a loan from the city to finish the EA as well as start the electrical. It's a complicated process, but Ms. Norris is right. We've laid this out in a staff report, several staff reports, and be happy to share
Just
them.
the short and simple of it is we've spent about $400,000 on the EA, and we're applying to the FAA to reimburse us for the cost of repaying the Oregon.
Big picture,
Oregon
yes.
too. Okay, thanks. It's confusing.
It's
So
very
I just
confusing.
wanted to make
I
sure
agree.
I understood
It's
where that
very confusing.
400,000 was
It's a good
coming
question.
from. And then on the downtown parking, I'm looking forward to our conversation on this. Could you help me understand the increase in the minimum from 16 to 33? I didn't really understand that. Was that per space? Is that per address? Is it per property, per square foot?
Which page are you on?
The minimum
The
parking
minimum
tax, how
parking
that
tax
works.
increase?
The minimum tax, the parking tax is paid on a formula. What the increase is on the minimum, it is the amount of money that if you don't pay, you either pay the minimum or a per space amount of $144 per space based on your square footage of the business that you have. More than half of the businesses downtown pay the minimum, which is which currently is about $16 a month. What we're suggesting is to make up the difference or the revenue shortfall, that we increase that to $33 a month, or really for a year we go from $197 to $400 on those businesses. The total is about $50,000.
Okay, I'm not understanding the translation from $33 to $197.
Okay, currently, a minimum payment is $194, for the minimum payment, it's $197 per year. What we're proposing is to move it to $400 per year. If you looked at it as a monthly rate, that would be moving from 30, I'm sorry.
I follow.
Okay.
That's an annual.
That's an annual, yes.
I see. And 33 is the monthly.
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I just was spacing it there. I've got one more question real quick, if that's all right. Like I said, I'm looking forward to this conversation because I know the task force has been working hard on this, but I'm concerned about that reduction in the beginning working capital I'm on page 183, from 677 last year to 394 this year. I mean, we're almost cutting that in half. Is that a downward trend? Because I don't see that 50,000 is going to make up for that large of a reduction.
I'm sorry, which page?
I'm on page 183. And I'm looking at the reduction in Fund 39910, or line 39910, from the budgeted $677,000 for beginning working capital to our recommended budget of $394,000. So that's a reduction of $283,000. I mean, it's almost 50% beginning working capital. So $50,000 definitely helps that, but it's a steep fall.
It might be helpful to look at on page 1. Another way to explain it, if you looked at page 187, and you looked at the contingencies on the bottom, where we're going, we're dropping to about 168. We're going down. If you look between what we did last year and what this budget represents is slightly a decrease. And what we're trying to do is increase the contingency so that it's larger. If we didn't do this, it would be closer to 168,000, what the DAB had recommended. And so what this does is increase the contingency of the 50,000 would increase it to 243,000.
But the beginning fund balance is going down.
Oh, and that's a fundamental structural problem with the fund. That's one of the reasons that the task force is looking at, is that the beginning fund balance is going down. It's not sustainable, and the fact that we've taken the 150,000 of leasehold out of it as a subsidy this year is further exacerbating the problem.
So the beginning fund balance will further decrease the following year if we don't have more revenue. Yeah, if we don't take action.
Yes.
Okay, last question. We're not approving this increase in fee on budget committee from 16 to 33. That would be a council action separate from this, and it's just budgeted with the assumption that that would move forward.
It would occur.
Okay, thanks. Sorry.
No,
Like I
fine.
said, I'm looking forward to this because this is a pretty big deal for downtown, and I'm glad we've had a lot of work on it. Member Nanki?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In that same light, so $16 right now is minimum parking
Per month.
per month. And then the next level is $144 to buy a space?
If the way that the formula works, and it's based on square footage and the type of use you have, if you qualify for the minimum, you would pay that minimum rate. If you don't, you pay on a per space basis, which is currently $144 per space. So the larger facilities really are paying the per space formula, where the smaller businesses are paying the minimum.
And if I can follow on that, so it's based on square footage. What is that square footage that you have to fall under to be minimum?
And maybe what we could do, there is actually a document that this model was set up many years ago, and so maybe what we could do is get that to all of the budget committee
Well,
members
and
so
if we're
can
going
read
to
it.
talk about it maybe on Monday, that all the
Yeah.
answer will
Do
come
that.
out. My
Yeah.
concern is that
I was just gonna
it's not
say-
based on what kind of activity
It
and
is
parking
based on
generation your
activity.
business would.
It's based
It
on
is
the
based on
activity,
type
the
of
square
activity.
footage. It's a complicated formula, and is
Can
part
we,
of the reason.
I would say let's kind of let that go to that work session that we're having, because I'm not understanding it still.
Right,
I
and your
want to
questions are really what the parking task force worked on for several months to try to understand and put all of this together. So
Okay.
I'm not surprised you have questions.
If the committee's okay with that, I think let's do that.
Yeah.
I saw Member Clem and then Member Berger and then Member Bennett.
I just want to confirm that this is a budget of what you think likely could happen. It really is worst case in terms of lowest available fund or rollover beginning balance, and then the lowest income if council approves the new revenues. So I just want to make sure that what we do here tonight, we still can change in June, again, with this parking thing. So until council decides on policy, I think we ought to just move past the parking and keep going on some of the others.
This says it does have the new parking permit increase in it. It would have that because that's already been decided by council.
Are you talking about the changes to the parking?
Are there any new revenue?
There
in
is
here?
new revenue in here.
From the
about
parking permit
$500,000
increases.
Of new parking revenue that
And does this, I think the question is, does this budget assume that council will move forward with the minimum tax increase, the minimum parking increase?
I think the recommendation is that it does approve it, and if not.
And it is in this budget?
Yes.
So if council decided not to go forward with that, we would need to adjust this budget, and there is time to do that, Member Clem.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Member Berger.
Moving back to the airport for a moment, when I started reading the section, I thought I would hear some discussion of the possibility of the federal government closing the control tower and how that would affect the budget. That possibility, could you just
It's a good question. You read the paper this morning. It's in there. Yes. I appreciate that question. The airport tower is a contract tower with the FAA, and it is funded, it's owned and funded and operated by the FAA. So there's no city funds in our budget that are affect the tower. We're very concerned about that. We'd like that tower to stay open, but it is all funded out of the FAA, and in our particular instance, it's out of their contract tower program. And that's, if you've been following the media for the past few months, that's what the sequestration was going to cut, roughly 130 towers nationally, and we were one of them. But it's not, yeah.
But I guess my question is, I did get that from the paper. Thank you, Statesman. We make money if that airport is busy and working and operating. So is there any concern that our leases or our property won't be as valuable if those things?
That's a good question too. We've thought about that. The tower will not affect the day-to-day operations at the airport. The companies that use that could use it as with or without a tower. And what it really means is that rather than having a control tower directing traffic as it's coming into Salem, you'll have pilots talking to each other instead, if that were to happen. And so, like many other airfields across the country that don't have towers, that's how it would work, and that's how it would have to work at Salem. It would probably be it would be problematic if we were if we had a commercial air carrier that was interested in coming here. That is an impact that we could be dealing with.
Thank you. Member Bennett? All right. I think we thoroughly dissected this one. Any other questions on these 4 items? Member Benjamin?
Is it possible to add more leasing opportunities on that airport area?
Yes, that's a great question. We have over 100 acres. We've gone through a master planning process recently and identified over 100 acres of developable property at the airport where additional leasing and development can occur. And we're very fortunate to have that. Most of it is right adjacent to taxiways. And so we are, part of our strategy for this airport is to attract more development and to attract expansion of not only hangars but also businesses to the airport as well. And so we are marketing it now as part of our integrated program with SEDCOR, and and so they're very much involved with it. So we've brought this asset into our economic development portfolio.
Thank you. I'm gonna, Member Bennett made a good point to me that on the last go around on item number 5, I didn't ask if anybody had any wish list items. So let's look, is there any ideas for wish list items on either agenda item 5 or 6? Madam Mayor?
Yes, I would like to have some discussion about adding code enforcement officer and putting that on the wish list.
I second that.
Okay. I think we'll call that a motion on the floor.
Call that a motion then, all right.
Discussion?
Now we'll have discussion. It is apparent to me from being out across the community that, as Councilor Bennett said, one of the most important things to keeping our neighborhoods viable and safe and clean and attractive is the exercise of the authority of the code enforcement officers. They do a tremendous job, and we can tell the difference when they're just not able to be out there. I get emails, and I know other counselors do as well, and I think it's well worth putting that back on a wish list.
Member Berger, then Member Clem.
I'd be curious if this passes and the city manager looks at this, just to look at how the code enforcement and law enforcement work together, and whether staff feels that adding to one helps the other in that relationship. I'd be curious what staff's opinion is when they look into this in detail.
Member Clem. Member Nackey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The motion wasn't to add a specific personnel number or service number? How will that actually be enumerated on the wish list?
What I understood is we would add what in code enforcement officer and the related materials and services for that position.
Did I miss that?
No, I didn't say it that way, Brad, but that's what I was talking about.
I was reading her mind.
Last week, we had quite a bit of discussion about the code enforcement officer and the value of the code enforcement officer and what the position does. And we know that by eliminating that position, we also then eliminated the other materials and services costs, et cetera. So all of that would need to be replaced. Yeah.
Any other comments, discussion? All right, so to be clear, the motion on the floor is for one code enforcement officer being added to the wish list along with all materials and services necessary for that position.
Maybe there's
Any more discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Oh, I saw a hand half going up.
I thought
you're getting ready to vote? All right, all those signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those against say nay.
Nay.
Motion passes with one dissent.
Was that you? All right.
All right, so
I'll meet him out in the park.
any other discussion for wish list items or discussion on items 5 or 6? Nope, seeing none, we'll move on to item number 7, presentation of the Urban Renewal Agency as well as Renewal Agency
Budget message.
Oh, the message plus the budget. There we go. I follow now. All right, Mr. Wales, take it away.
You're going to be sick of me tonight. Here. Again, for the record, John Wales, the Director of the Urban Development Department. You may recall in January when I gave an overview of the Urban Renewal Urban Renewal Agency, we talked about how it works, how tax increment and how the program is funded. We talked about where the Urban Renewal Agencies are. Tonight I'm going to be giving you a brief message of the overview message for the Urban Renewal Agency, as well as highlighting some of the major projects that we're seeing that this budget will reflect. Just as background, the Urban Renewal Agency currently manages 7 urban renewal areas. We may recall we closed one last year, Pringle, so we used to have 8, we've got 7. The urban renewal areas include Riverfront Downtown, North Gateway, West Salem, Fairview Industrial Park, Mill Creek Industrial Park, the McGilchrist Urban Renewal Area, and South Waterfront. The revenues generated from the increase in property tax collections, we call that tax increment, from each of these areas are managed as separate funds and can only be used to fund the projects within that respective area. The projects themselves must be identified in the urban renewal plan to be eligible for funding. In Salem, urban renewal investments, primarily that include infrastructure such as water, sewer, roads, parks, trails, trail connections, restoration of natural areas, and public-private partnerships, have opened blighted areas to private investment and created jobs and enhanced the community's overall economic prosperity. This year, due to the current economic conditions, we are projecting little or no increases to the tax revenue that's collected in 2013-2014, with a slight decline actually in Riverfront URA due to the high concentration of commercial properties within the URA, as well as is expected to decline slightly. URAs with larger concentrations of industrial property, such as North Gateway, in fact, are expected to see a limited increase. But overall, I think we're seeing a more flat forecast, or a flat forecast as far as revenues. There are several high-priority projects that are coming in this fiscal year. Tonight, I'd like to highlight just a few of those to give you a flavor of what this budget reflects. This budget recommends funding for a variety of projects. The construction of the Minto-Brown Island Bridge, there's approximately $5.3 million that is proposed in that fund. The construction of this bridge has been a goal of this community for more than 40 years and can begin as early as 2014 if we achieve that last $1.6 million funding gap that we have got several grants in to achieve or to obtain. There's $1 million of toolbox and $500,000 of toolbox loan. So I'm sorry, $1 million of toolbox grants and $500,000 of toolbox loans. To date, this program has improved over 56 buildings in the downtown and assisted in creating 36 residential housing units throughout the downtown area. This past year has seen a renewed interest in both the loan and the grant program, and these funds are expected to continue to improve the business downtown, leveraging between anywhere from $1 to $3 per every dollar we put in from these programs. The capital improvements for downtown parking structures are funded over approximately $700,000 that will be granted to the parking fund. Those monies will be used for elevator replacements at the Liberty Parkade, as well as fund some of the improvements to the Chemeketa Parkade Skybridge, as I mentioned earlier. And as you know, the Central Salem Mobility Study is in progress now. There is funding in this budget. The mobility study is expected to be complete later this spring, early summer, and there's approximately $225,000 of projects for Commercial Street over by Marion Park for intersection improvements that are anticipated if the council approves that, or if the agency board approves that. In West Salem, plans have been underway for many years to construct improvements to 2nd Street. Right-of-way and design, right-of-way acquisition and the design has been completed, and the construction is set to begin in July of 2013, which is very, very good for this URA. They haven't had a major project yet, and this is the first, so we're very pleased that that's coming to fruition. The improvement includes streets, sidewalk, customer parking, improved lighting, and utility upgrades from Rosemont to Girth Streets. Toolbox grants funds are also included in this year's budget, approximately $150,000, a little bit less than that, to be used to improve properties in West Salem URA. And in addition, this year we're recommending the creation of a West Salem Business District Plan, a study that will funds will be used to develop concepts for the business district's future. The work will analyze the demand for new development, including a possible hotel in the area, and include traffic impact analysis as well as assessment of bicycle and pedestrian accessibility. Moving to the Mill Creek Industrial Park, there's some exciting infrastructure projects going on. They actually happen to be the 3 largest projects that were proposed or are proposed for the Mill Creek. The Mill Creek Reservoir includes it's a 2-year project, but the construction of a 2.2 million gallon reservoir to meet the water system development needs for Mill Creek Corporate Center. The URA funds are being combined with system development charges to pay a total of $5.5 million over the 2-year project. In addition to that, we're proposing the completion of the improvements to Kubler, Almsville Highway intersection. Approximately $550,000 in this budget is recommended to go to that, to complete that project. This improvement is designed to accommodate additional traffic signals in the development of the Mill Creek Corporate Center as well. And finally, the large wetland project that was started a couple of years ago will be wrapping up. There actually will be planting this spring, and so $380,000 are dedicated to the wetlands facility to completing the first phase of that, which is a big undertaking. What this means is that a substantial portion of the 500 acres is going to be immediately ready for development. Developers aren't going to have to worry about permitting and permits for wetland issues and environmental issues, and the marketability of this property is going to increase tremendously. So this is property that we're waiting for the economy to return. The good news is we're seeing a lot more interest in the past 6 months in showing this property, so we think we're going to be ready when the businesses come. The Fairview Industrial Park will stop collecting tax increment this year. It's an older URA. We've reached our maximum indebtedness. In the proposed budgets, funds are allocated for the small business loan program. We still have that underway. You may remember Organic Fresh Fingers and Wandering Angus and Gilgamesh have been previous recipients of that. There's approximately $2 million in available cash for projects that are yet unspecified. So we'll be coming back to the agency to talk about possible projects either at the airport or additional funding for the small business program or programs like that. In the North Gateway URA, the funds are planned to begin design on the improvements to the Portland Road from Hyacinth south to the Portland Road underpass. This project is the second phase of an improvement to Portland Road and has been planned for many years. The agency is currently making additional debt service payment to retire the debt in 2018 in order to begin this next phase of the Portland Road. The Portland Road second phase of the project. In addition, funds are proposed to continue funding the URA loans program. We have about $550,000 that we have in a loan and grant programs for North Gateway. Two of our other newer URAs, the South Waterfront URA was established in 2007 to assist in facilitating the redevelopment in and around the former Boise site. Tax increment has not accelerated at the rate that was anticipated when the URA was established, and the current budget proposed to provide matching funds needed to complete the Minto Brown Island Bridge. Basically, what is budgeted this year is the match that we have for the trail that goes across Minto Brown Island. At McGilchrist, a similar story was established in 2006 with just one project, and that was to improve the McGilchrist Street to bring a total of 120 additional acres of industrial and commercial property into the urban service area. Significant funding does not yet exist to fund this project, but the funds and set aside are there to begin the design if and when we're ready to proceed with that. And with that concludes my presentation on the Urban Renewal Agency.
First, I'll start with public testimony or questions. Seeing none. Member Bennett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Wales, I wanted to go back to downtown. Where'd he go?
I feel like I'm at Parliament here with my notebook. I'm sorry, to go back to which slide?
To the downtown urban renewal area.
Sure.
Now, how much are you spending on those parking structures again?
About 700, I think it's about 700,000, 712,000. I can look that up if you'd like.
No, it's about 700.
Yeah, it's a little over 700,000.
Okay. I guess the thing I want to point out, just to keep us focused on this parking for just, and you'll hear more about this Monday, but that is $700,000 that is not going into toolbox, loans, grants, commercial street improvements, other improvements in the downtown area. And I think one of the things we've seen is the Downtown Advisory Board is recommending just 3 more years of this subsidy for parking downtown. I mean, we have continued to pour money into these structures for 40 years, and it's time. The other, I guess, is a question that was asked of me by one of my constituents that has a business served by the Pringle parking garage. Are the elevator work that's going to be done with this money, does that go to lowest bidder? He asked me the question. I have no idea, but it does.
Yeah, it does.
I just want to share with you, and I've heard it from other businesses over the years, and I realize there are constraints on what you can do, but we're not getting the quality they feel. I have no idea, but I'm going to accept their complaint that we're not getting the quality of improvement, nor do we have the quality of elevator we should have in the parking structures if we could go to a better product. And they were asking if we were constrained. I don't know, but they certainly were disturbed by, it seemed like, and one of the gentlemen needs it because of capacity to move around inside that parking garage, that these things are out of service a lot, and that it really poses a tremendous difficulty for all kinds of people. But his complaint was, why are we doing lowest bidder on an elevator? And, you know, if you travel at all in elevators, it does suddenly make you come up short when you think the guy with the lowest bid is fixing this thing that's got me up 3 floors dangling in space, so.
And if outside the meeting, if you could give me that information so we can get the feedback on what trouble they're having, that would be very useful as we go forward. We have, I believe, a contractor of record. Steve, is that right? And
I believe that's true.
Yes, it is. And they do our elevator maintenance. We have standards and requirements that they're supposed to keep it up to, or requirements for the work that's being done. If that is not meeting the needs, or if we're continuing to have reliability issues, then we need to maybe take a different approach.
Well, I would at some point, not now or any time soon, but just at some point, like to have an understanding of some sort of reliability measurement
Sure.
that says, yep, it works all the time or half the time or whatever.
Okay, we can do that.
Member Dickey, then Clem, then Bednarz.
Thank you. Yeah, so my question deals with parking again. I just want to make sure I understand. We just talked about the parking fund in the previous presentation, and there were funds set aside that if we implement the changes the task force is recommending, we would move forward with that. Not having seen the task force recommendations, is there anything in there that would offset, for example, the $700,000 in this fund, or is that something completely separate?
I think no matter what the council decides with the task force recommendation, this will have to go, this year we'll have to, those elevators will need to be repaired. But what Member Bennett was referring to is that the goal is to make it a sustainable, the parking fund a sustainable fund.
But it may take 3 years to get to that point. Yes. So the Downtown Advisory Board has recommended that they can continue to fund at this level out of the Riverfront URA for 3 years, but then would like to be able to turn it over to those other downtown-related uses by having the parking fund be able to support itself.
Okay, so just to be clear, there aren't any recommendations in there that would reduce this year's budget?
No.
That you know of? Okay. All right. Thank you.
Member Clem?
Yes, I just want to dovetail Councilor Bennett's issue with the elevators. I haven't heard any complaints, but I just want to clarify. We're spending $1 million a year to redo an elevator a year. Is that correct, John?
It's not an elevator, several elevators. We did, there's 6, thank you. Renee's giving me it's 6 that are included.
Okay, and so, again, that I would be interested about this low bidder issue or the level of performance, because $1 million a year is a lot of money, and so I just want to make sure we're getting the money for our
Certainly, we can give you a report on it.
Taxpayer money.
Member Bednarz?
So I've been, on the council for about 3-4 months, whatever it's been. But I've been hearing about these elevators now for the last, it seems like, last 3 or 4 years. Just seems to go on and on. That actually wasn't my question, and I don't want to dive down into the line item. If you go under the tab service, I'm going again for policy level. If you go under the depth service tab and you look at the depth service that we have, I wanted to make note of a couple things. First off, there are 6 urban renewal districts in here, not a 7th. McGillcrest is not on it, I'm gathering, because it doesn't have any debt at this point.
That's correct.
Isn't debt required by law for an urban renewal district?
No, that's not required by law, but in order to pay for any projects, you need to have incurred debt and move it into your construction fund in order to pay with that. You can't use tax increment directly for that.
And then the second thing, and this is really important, I wanted to bring up, there are 3 URA areas that have or will have no debt as of June 30th, 2014. Obviously, Mill Creek and South Waterfront are just taking off, but the Fairview, I see we just basically have 1 more year's worth of payment.
Well, Mill Creek actually does have debt. The reason it's not on here is that we're not required to pay it for 5 years. The loan that we have from Business Oregon is deferred for 5 years, so it hasn't yet shown up on here.
So I'm going to go back, my issue was more closer to Fairview. So do I take it that when this debt is paid off in 14, that this is going to be closing? I'm coming back and I'm looking for additional revenue. That's why I'm saying policy-wise rather than line item-wise.
We're not paying. We're not losing any money.
It will start collecting, so the taxing right now, we're collecting about half the revenue or tax increment that we could be from Fairview, and we have for many years. It's about $450,000. As of now, we don't need that anymore, returning all of the tax increment to the taxing jurisdiction. So the URA will not be taking more than the amount that it has been taking, but the taxing jurisdictions will get the remainder of that $450,000 that we've been getting. That doesn't mean you close the district, though. There's still $2 million in the construction fund that are projects that are eligible, unless the agency board decides to close it, which you can. But there are other projects that could still be done in Fairview. It's just winding down. It's going to go off. It is not going to be. It's returning money to the other taxing jurisdictions.
I'll just defer to the agency when that discussion comes up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions? Any wish list items, not as appropriate for URA, but no? Thank you, Mr. Wales. I think we're good for now. So we'll move on to item number 8 on our agenda, which is review of the building and safety budget, and it looks like Director Woods will be taking us through this.
That's correct. Thank you. Oh, I have to get to it here.
All right. Go ahead, Ms. Woods. We'll listen.
Can you get through
attentively.
another one here? Unlike the other divisions in the Community Development Department, the Building and Safety Division is solely funded through revenues. We must generate sufficient funds to pay for all of our operations. The proposed budget for next year is about $3.5 million, which is a 10% increase over this year's budget. This increase is above and beyond the standard 4 to 5% related to PERS, insurance, and cost of living increases. The reason for this additional increase is that building activity is accelerating. Thus, we are proposing 2 additional positions to maintain our existing customer service levels. Current fee levels are adequate to support these new positions. No fee increases are proposed. The primary function of the Building and Safety Division is to assure the safety of structures in the community through the administration of state building code. The division also hosts the Permit Application Center where all licenses and permits for the city are issued. Last year at this time, the Building and Safety Division faced significant challenges in generating sufficient revenue to deliver the service that our customers expected and deserved. The problem was created by 3 separate factors. 1, fees had been held artificially low throughout the recession. 2, building valuations, which are part of the formula for determining fees, had decreased. And 3, the number of building permits being issued remained at some of the lowest levels in years. In response to this problem, and with the support of our constituents, the City Council authorized an increase in permit fees. I'm pleased to say that the fees, in conjunction with increased activity and increased building valuations, have enabled the fund to stabilize, and we expect to end this fiscal year in good standing. With increased activity, however, comes increased demand for services. We closely monitor workload and can see that our current staffing levels cannot keep up with demand. Thus, we are proposing to add a permit technician and reinstate the project monitor position. Finally, we are making some small adjustments to the recently acquired parking permit program by reallocating staff to better reflect actual time spent on that program. With next year's budget, we will be installing laptop computers in the inspectors' vehicles to provide staff and the public real-time access to data and eliminate redundancies in the process. As we look further into the future, we're preparing ourselves to convert to an e-plan review system. This system will allow applicants to submit all building plans electronically. This will save expense and travel time for our customers, and will allow staff to more efficiently review plans. This project is slated to be up and running by the end of fiscal year 14-15. With all the good news, there's one thing I am worried about for the coming year. House Bill 3145 is pending at the state legislature. The bill would require the State Building Codes Division to issue building permits for any state project over $1 million. If passed, it's hard to predict the impact this would have on Salem's building permitting program. At best, the state would take a cut out of the building fees and contract back to Salem. At worst, they would just take over the projects and all the revenues. My concern is that our revenue outlook would be unpredictable, so that maintaining adequate qualified staff to process private sector projects would be much harder to do. We're keeping an eye on this legislation and doing what we can to provide input to the legislature on the impacts this law would have. We have yet to see what will come out of the legislature by the end of the year. And that concludes my presentation on the Building and Safety Division.
Thank you, Ms. Woods. Any public testimony on this one? Seeing none, Member Bailey.
Two questions. First of all, what's the impetus behind House Bill 3145?
My understanding that what is driving that is that the state has had some problems, especially in some smaller jurisdictions, in getting their permit review process through. They don't have the expertise or the staff to be able to do that, so they want the ability to be able to do that themselves. It's tough on a community like Salem, where a big proportion of what we do has to do with state projects. And we're very well versed and are able to handle them.
One more and a different question. So you're talking about in the next year, mobile inspections, laptops in cars, e-plan review. How is this linked in with the strategic plan, the IT plan that we're hearing earlier? Is it, I mean, is this an initiative strictly of the building department, or are we integrated throughout the rest of the?
We're like this with the IT.
We are one with it.
We're working with them to try so that they can accommodate the staffing needs we have. And yes.
I would have assumed so, but you never know.
No, it's a good question.
Thank you. Any other questions? Member Berger and then Member Clem.
Yeah, last year at the beginning of the cycle, this was the sky is falling issue.
That's right.
And at that time, the line coming from staff was, we need these increased fees, and the sky is so falling, we're probably going to need to increase fees even further. The outlook you're explaining makes it sound like things have stabilized, and I'm just kind of confirming that.
Yes, that's correct. I mean, we'll look again, but at this point, we don't see the need, at least in the very near future, to increase fees again. We'll probably next year at this time, we'll be talking about where we are, but right now, we're going to come out just about even.
Okay, thank you.
Member Clem?
Yeah, we'll come out just about even if these building permits on page 223 double from 900,000 to 1.8 million. So I am concerned about that House bill, but just want to make sure we know what we're doing here in terms of revenue assumptions. We're doubling the building permits in 32835, Vicki.
I was hoping somebody was going to ask me that question.
Yeah, boy, that's a big assumption, doubling. Huh?
It's not as big as it appears. First of all, the assumption from last year was based on no fee increase.
Okay.
So when we increased our fees, we actually are we are only slightly increasing what we actually expect to get this year. I think it's about a 5%, and in actual revenues. So that projection was based on no fee increase. We did get a fee increase, and then we've had increased activity. So between those two things, the actual increase over what we expect to get this year is very small.
And these fee increases were supported by the building industry.
They were.
Because they have a confidence and trust in the permit handlers, that technicians. And so this is not a forced fee, this is a cooperative participative
Yes,
fee.
it's important to them to be able to get the service they need to get their permits through. And I neglected to, and I wanted to introduce to you tonight, because Tom Phillips, who has been our building administrator for a number of years, has moved on. And I wanted to introduce to you our acting building administrator, who is Rebay Tamerhulet, who is sitting here.
Thank you. I am glad to see, too, that we're getting back the project coordinator. That's not the name of the title, but that is a pretty
Yes.
big deal for larger commercial projects, and it's a good selling point for architects, engineers,
And,
so on
and
so
with
forth.
the uptick in activity, we're finding that we need it.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a good thing. Member Bailey?
I was going to say along that line that, I mean, we can have this discussion offline on House Bill 3145, but it seems to me like for a jurisdiction like Salem that obviously has the capacity and pulling it back to be capable of handling a large and sometimes complex project that the state might propose, and certainly we're no strangers in this city to state-related construction projects, but there ought to be a way that a city or jurisdiction could specifically request that these permits be handled through the local government's building permit process rather than the state itself. And it seems like would be a reasonable amendment to add to it. Not every city's going to ask for that. Not every jurisdiction, Josephine County couldn't do it if they had to.
Right.
That's true.
If I could on that, Member
So,
Bailey.
that's just an idea.
I'm trying to be cognizant of time, and we definitely are looking at that on legislative committee, and it's being watched closely, and that's exactly where we're headed with it. So looking at sizes of jurisdictions, so on and so forth. So, all right. It's already 8:10, and we got a lot to go. So any other questions? Any wish list ideas, items? Not so applicable here again. Seeing none? Good. Thank you, Ms. Woods. Oh, wait, you're still right back up here for the art
I am,
fund.
and
Never
this
mind.
will probably be the shortest and smallest budget that you review. The Public Art Commission is comprised of 7 members appointed by the City Council. Dollars in the art fund are intended to pay for purchase and maintenance of public art. No expenditures took place during the fiscal year 12-13, and the only revenue received was interest. One capital project, the upgrade of the Regional Traffic Control Center, is anticipated for next year's budget, which will provide 0.5% to this fund, so it'll be a very small amount of money. The Arts Commission, though, is looking at other ways to come up with revenues, and they have applied for a National Endowment for the Arts Our Town grant in conjunction with the Oregon Artist Series Foundation for $75,000. And if we receive that grant, we will have some money come into this budget, and we'll be looking at spending that for some public sculpture in the downtown area.
Great. Thank you. All right. Public testimony. Nope, seeing none. All right. We will...
We got to ask for a wish list.
All right. Member Dinky, I know you have a wish list item. I can hear it. Okay. All right. We will move on to item number 9, where we're on the tots, and Mr. Nider will be presenting. Take it away when you're ready.
All right. There we go. All right. Greetings, Chair Clausen, Mayor Peterson, and Budget Committee members. My name is Christopher Nider, and I'm the budget analyst in the City of Salem's Budget Office, and also the staff liaison to the Cultural Tourism Promotion Advisory Board. And tonight I will be giving an overview of the Culture and Tourism Fund, which is also the advisory board is also a city council advisory board on culture and tourism for the city. And the tourism fund has a proposed budget of $2.8 million. You notice that there's an increase of about 13.9%. That is actually related to the increase in TOT, transient occupancy tax, that's coming in at approximately 8% higher than what it was last year at this time. And the Culture and Tourism Fund revenue from that 9% tax, transient occupancy tax, is on the hotel and motel stays within the city limits, and it's used on a variety of marketing and historic and cultural places and events that happen throughout the city, as well as parking, landscape maintenance, and for the city-owned historic buildings in accordance with City Charter 56. The significant changes this year for the Culture and Tourism Fund include an increase in funding due to the higher revenue. Total marketing support for the budget year is $840,000, $290,000 going to the convention center, and $550,000 to the Travel Salem as the marketing arm of the city. New this year in the budget, you'll see that the gain-loss reserve fund, normally there's an annual $300,000 transfer from TOT to the gain-loss reserve, which is set up and established for capital improvement projects to the convention center. There was an agreement when the convention center was originally established that once that fund reached $4 million, then the contribution would no longer be needed, hopefully, going forward. And so we have now reached that amount. We've got $4.1 million in reserve. And so that $300,000 now being used for increasing the park maintenance fees, that park maintenance that goes to the local parks in and around our city cultural and historical landmarks. And lastly, there was an increase to all of the grants that the Culture and Tourism Promotion Advisory Board reviews and makes recommendations to the City Council through the budget process. Last year's budget was for $312,910, and this year we've increased it to $380,000. And that'll provide funding for 10 facility operators, 21 special events, and 4 capital improvement grants, as outlined on pages 196 through 197. The future outlook for the fund and for the Culture and Tourism Promotion Advisory Board continues to look forward to funding and increasing tourism to Salem through promotion of the city as a cultural and historical destination. And recently, the board has identified the need to provide visitors and guests to our city with a simple yet functional marketing tool or map that provides visitors a view of the city on one side and a list of things to see and do here in the city on the other, that can be used at our local hotels and motels and local facility operators as a guide to the city of Salem. And the board is also reviewing and updating a historical and cultural brochure that was previously printed that provides an overview of the local museums, hours of operation, phone numbers, and admission fees. And these two projects are being discussed by the board, and with the help of Travel Salem, hope to be provided to city visitors in the near future. And with that, I will answer any questions that you may have.
All right, first we'll take public testimony, and we have a few people signed up tonight. First is Scott Snyder, followed by Toby, I can't remember it, can't read the last name. What was it, Olson? Olson. All right, there we go. And again, introduce yourself, name and ward or address.
Good evening. My name is Scott Snyder. I'm the general manager for the Grand Hotel, 201 Liberty Street Southeast. And I want to just share my appreciation and just awe of the amount of time and energy that you folks spend reviewing this. Obviously, it's a very important job. I'm here tonight to speak very briefly. We are members of the Salem Area Lodging Association, and we are obviously representatives of the hotel industry as a whole. We represent all of the major hotel and motels in Salem and many of the smaller mom and pop type facilities as well. And we work cooperatively. We may be competitors. We want you to stay with us at the Grand, but and Jake wants you to stay at the Mill Creek Plus. But we do work cooperatively to help enhance Salem's visibility and attractiveness, and making sure that we're putting our best foot forward to really be the welcome mat to our visitors and making sure that they're seeing the best of Salem. I am here tonight to speak in favor of the city manager's recommended TOT allocations budget, and want to just emphasize the many benefits of what a healthy tourism industry brings to our economy. It is an economic driver. There are over 2,800 jobs that are supported in Salem alone through some fashion of the tourism industry, whether that be at hotels and motels, restaurants, shops that are dependent upon out-of-town travelers. I just hired 5 new employees in the last month, and I wouldn't do that if I couldn't sustain those positions. These are positions that are working full-time. They will earn their health benefits within 90 days, and they're providing an outstanding level of service to my guests, and I want to make sure that we're maintaining that level of business to keep that commitment. And I'm also here to talk tonight just briefly again about our important relationship as a hotel with our destination marketing organization, Travel Salem, and our commitment as a hotel and an organization, the Lodging Association, to being very hand in glove and being very collaborative with helping to identify areas and helping maximize their efforts with the money that is budgeted for marketing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Mr. Snyder? All right. Next up, we have Toby Olson, followed by Jake Bryant.
Good evening. My name's Toby Olson. I'm from the Hampton Inn Suites, Salem, Oregon, on 510 Hawthorne. I am the general manager. And what I wanted to talk a little bit about is I've been in Salem a year and a half, and we're so happy there's a Hilton finally in Salem. So I want to talk about the importance of Travel Salem and how they deliver some great conventions to our properties. One in particular is the BMW Bike Rally, right? That was held in Missouri last year. We won it here in Salem. It's in July, 4 days. Our hotel is at capacity right now. So we're bringing thousands of people from the East Coast to come out here and see Salem. So think about the lodging, the dining, the gas, the shopping, all of those different activities they're going to do. How about Jehovah's Witness conventions that we have? Okay? Those are just a couple of the conventions that are bringing a powerful, powerful money flow into our property. Now, you also want to think about the traveler who may spend a weekend in Salem. There's competitors, Bend, Eugene, Vancouver, Washington, that are going after the same kind of business, the same event planners, the same weekend traveler. So we got to have that arm out there promoting Salem and all the great activities and things to do in this area. It's vital, 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 because they're not coming to the Grand Hotel to hold a huge convention. They're going to reach out to Travel Salem, get the logistics together, and celebrate the whole town. And we are smart enough to know in the travel industry that somebody out of Seattle is not coming to stay at a New Hampton hotel. They're coming to experience Salem and enjoy everything that's here. And we've got to have the same kind of intensity that Bend, Eugene, Vancouver, these competitors of ours, to bring the money here. And guess what? People build business where they want to travel, and that's a fact. Hotel industry had record numbers last year. We're seeing great, great pacing for the summer. It's going to be a fantastic summer here. So we want to make sure we continue this wave and ride it long into the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. Any questions? Thank you very much for coming down. Jake Bryant is next, and then Denise Nacarado.
Hello, my name is Jake Bryant. I'm General Manager of Best Western Plus Mill Creek Inn. I live in Ward 6. I just wanted to speak in support of the proposed budget as well, and just talk a little bit about, quickly about one of the benefits that Travel Salem brings to our area, to our city. For the last 4 years, our hotel has been a satellite for Travel Salem. What that means is, I don't know if you notice on the I-5, the blue I signs, the information signs, people know that they can exit there, come to an area and just get information on the city. So 4 years ago when we started Travel Salem, they set up a kiosk in our lobby with brochures, the Salem magazine that has information on everything in the city. And they also provided training for our staff so that when people ask detailed questions about what to do in the area, that they could answer those questions. In March, we had probably 450 people that came by asking questions like that. That was actually a slow month for us. Usually it's higher numbers than that. And basically people are asking the basic, what is there to do in Salem? They're asking more details, great places to eat, what kind of events are in Salem, what kind of historical, what areas are there to visit, things like that. So we get a direct benefit from that just because we've had several instances where people have stopped in, asked questions, and decided to stay. And I think Salem also has, because we've heard from people, if they're just traveling through, ask some questions, and then say, okay, well, we'll call back. We want to make sure that we bring our families back. That sounds like fun. We can talk about World Beat or some different things like that. So I'm committed to being involved in the future of the DMO, and I just wanted to show our support for that as well.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you very much. Next, Denise, did I get your last name right last time?
You missed the first name, too.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
I'm like way off here.
That's all right. My name is Danae Nacarado. I'm the
Danae,
general
thank
manager
you.
at the Red Lion Hotel and Convention Center. So my address is on Market Street. I'm somewhere on the crossroads between 5 and 6. So basically, I also just came to show my support to thank the council city manager for the budget and to support that the allocations that have been given for the TOT fund are adequate for this year for funding. Absolutely. This is my, I'm just finishing my first year back in Salem. I was born in Salem, moved away, came back, graduated from McNary High School, went to Western Oregon. I've been gone for 20 years and just came back last year, and I'm so excited to raise my family here in Salem, Oregon. And when guests come to my hotel, they always say, well, what's to do in Salem? What's going on? You know, people don't come to Salem always because they want to. People come to Salem because they have to. So what I want to do and what I really encourage is finding ways to make people want to come to Salem. What can we do with our parks? What can we do with our historic and cultural facilities? And what can we do to increase some of these wonderful budding ideas of events? And what can we do to really increase the names, to become bigger and better? World Beat Festival, I'm going to beat that drum all through June. I can't wait. And so this gets to be my first year where I get to jump in and help support. And I think you'll find that our Salem Lodging Association is very excited about the opportunity to continue to work with our DMO at Travel Salem, and we are fully committed in supporting in any way we can. As collectors of the TOT tax, I'd like to say, you know, I got to increase the revenue since moving back, but I know it's a lot of effort from a lot of hotels, and we're very excited to be here and do what we need to do to make Salem a great place for people to want to come visit.
All right, thank you very much. Member Clem.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is it Danae?
Danae, yes.
Danae, thank you. When we want to have a marathon in a couple of years, can we count on Lodging Association support?
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
Anything that we can do to drive revenue
Budding little
into Salem,
ideas can be a lot of work.
It's a budding little idea, and you have people here that are event planners and event experts, and I've been in a lot of major markets, Minneapolis, I've been in Portland, I've been in smaller ones in Spokane, I've been in little teeny tiny ones in Wisconsin, and just whatever I can do to help out, whatever we can do, whatever resources we have available. You have very willing people that are hospitable in a lot of ways, that are really looking for an opportunity.
The Red Lion running team.
The Red Lion running team.
Never been ours.
I have people that would love to be on a marathon training. I'd
Thank
love
you
to
for
let
coming.
them train.
Thank you for coming down here. I had a question. As a hotel operator, what do you hear? What do you hear from people? Are they looking for places to visit or events to attend?
Well, of course, it depends on the demographic of who's going in. Events are a big draw in markets that I've been in. You know, I spent just about a decade in Spokane, Washington. Every weekend long, it's Lilac Festival, it's Hoop Fest, it's American Music Festival, it's 4th of July, it's Pig Out in the Park, it's American Tribal. There's something every weekend going on downtown, every weekend, without fail. And it's the Convention and Visitors Bureau, it's, you know, it's them taking the time and saying, we need to develop this. I used to nanny for a gentleman who was part of the Hoop Fest, who was one of the first founding members, Rick Slentenpole, and his little girl, who's now running half the organization. But it's taking that idea and having somebody or an organization that says, let us help you this is a great idea. Let's grow this seed, and let's put our resources, let's put our websites, let's put our marketing skills and expertise together and see what we can do to get it better. We'd love to have a marathon. We'd love to have an annual, biannual, those types of events to Salem.
So you're talking, everything you talked about there was about events, and I'm also curious about our locations. We have a lot of historic facilities in our community.
Absolutely. It just, again, it depends on the demographic of the people. When I have people come to the hotel and they ask, where can I take my kids? Oh, I'm sending them to the Gilbert House. Have you been around that place? It's fantastic. So I got to take my kids there actually about 3 weekends ago. And honestly, first time I'd ever been to the Gilbert House. So I've sent people down there because that's what you do. And that's what the brochure says to do. But I got to experience it with my kids. Holy smokes, we ran all up and down the trails and all outside. It was crazy. The bubble room is closed. That made us very sad.
Oh.
And apparently there's some issues there. And what's helpful for me is I get to say, yes, if there's an area that we can help with tourism, if my tourism dollars are going to help make the bubble room bigger and better and in a safer location and that's better for the building, hallelujah, we're doing our job. So and that's what we're looking for. And my staff is very enthusiastic about sending people. They find those little niches and those little fun little places. When people ask where to go for pizza, we don't send them to the Pizza Hut and the Domino's. We send them to those local homegrown. We're sending them to Cristo's. We're sending them to Donatello's. We're sending them, wherever we can find. Paddington's, So.
I can tell you chose the right vocation. You're bubbly.
I'm a little bubbly, yeah. I'm a little
That's
loud
good.
too. I'm trying
That's
to
okay.
maintain.
We need loud people out there.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Any other public testimony? I see a couple likely suspects to my left, but they're sitting quietly. Okay.
Chair, I wonder if I could say something. I met with the members of the Salem Area Lodging Association a couple of months ago, I guess, because I wanted to find out from them what is it in this budget that they feel brings room nights, and what could we do even better than we're doing it right now. And they had great ideas. They've volunteered to meet with me periodically, and we're hoping Angie will join us too, so that we can continue to just refine that and make sure that we're leveraging these dollars to the extent that we can, so it brings in more revenue so we can do more things with it. And I really appreciate their time and their willingness to come down and tell you firsthand of what they think is important.
All right. Thank you. Any questions or comments? Well, any other public testimony first? I think we're good. Okay, questions and comments. The mayor had signed up. I see Member Berger, Member Dickey. Yep.
Well, I didn't.
She whispered earlier.
I whispered in his ear. I just wanted to say to our hospitality industry guests and to Travel Salem, it truly is a significant thing for me as the mayor of this community. When I was over at the State Tourism Conference just a few days ago at the conference center, and heard again and again from people what a great job our hospitality industry is doing and what a great job Travel Salem does, and what a great job Travel Salem has been doing as a role model for the other destination marketing organizations. I had a chance to actually be on a ranch where I went because I could ride a horse, and lo and behold, the daughter of the family that owned the ranch is on the State Tourism Commission, and she was absolutely all over the great job that's going on in Salem because of Travel Salem and because of the hospitality industry in the city and the way everything works together. I'm particularly optimistic because of our new heritage cultural designation, and I'm not reeling it off exactly correctly, but we did recognize that on Monday night, and I believe it's going to help us to further unite in marketing and messaging our historical cultural properties, and that's going to be good for everybody. The other thing is, I was just at an economic development conference yesterday, and agritourism is a major, major economic development driver, and this state recognizes it, and we already recognize it here. Travel Salem's done a lot in that area, and I am very pleased to know how well we can work together on all of those projects. We are the collaboration capital. Thank you.
Member Berger, then Well, then I've got a list going, so.
I'm a question for staff. I'm on page 194. There is a $80,000 for city-sponsored signature events and festivals, which is new this year. And I'm just wondering what policy change there was to have city signature events.
I added that, so I'll talk to you about it. After actually meeting with the Lodging Association people about how important it is to bring events that result in overnight rooms, I thought it was important. When you look at the special events and project grants we have right now, it's the same really wonderful events, but the same things we do every year. And so we wanted to have some seed money of how we could do some things differently, and one of those things being preparing for the first marathon, and hopefully half marathon that we have when the Minto Island Bridge is completed. But I've had other people come forward with wanting to do some other events in the community, so it really is seed money to develop some new things.
And just to follow up, is the idea behind this that the city staff will start, I was thinking of a plant analogy, but I won't go there. We'll start these events and then pass them off to nonprofits like are done in other ways?
Well, the ideas might come from city staff or from Travel Salem or from Lodging Association members or from promoters and event planners in the community. And then what I'm thinking is we would have some seed money for maybe to help with sponsorship for the first year or so as we move forward. So really it's a placeholder right now. People are coming forward with ideas, and it's just to get some new things going in Salem.
And I just wonder if city staff has the expertise for that.
We have some expertise, but we don't have all the expertise. But there are a lot of people in the community who do have that.
Okay.
Okay.
And I guess as a policy matter, I don't necessarily like the idea of the city running these events and becoming invested in events and growing a bureaucracy around these events.
No, that's not what we anticipate here. It's really more seed money to begin the planning. We don't have expertise in running a marathon, for example, but there are a lot of people who do. But there are some upfront costs that we may have as we put the first one together. Okay.
Be a contract. Hence, we would be the sponsor.
Yes.
As opposed to the organizer.
Right.
Correct?
Yeah, type
A
of contract.
sponsor. One of many sponsors, I hope.
Contract out.
Next, I've got Dickie, Bennett, Nanke. Anybody else? Bailey? All right, member Dickie.
Yeah, thanks. I am wondering, and I didn't see it on here, but I may have missed it. I'm wondering if there's any top funds dedicated for our gateways, our entrances. I know we've talked about that previously, and frankly, there's been no change. And so I'm wondering if that fits in, if there's anywhere that fits in here, and if there's any funds allocated for that.
The funds that we have in here are related to park maintenance and the work we can do with flower planting and mowing and that sort of thing. But no, we do not have, and just haven't had the funds available to do, a major change to signage or, gateway markers, that sort of thing. We don't have those funds.
So I'm thinking of the one that I see all the time is the one if you're coming from the north and you're coming down Portland Road and you're coming to the State Fair or many events in Salem, and it is just in terrible repair. I think it really, and I know we're on TV here, but I'm just going to be blunt. It looks terrible, and I think it gives a really bad impression of Salem. And I can't imagine it would cost a lot to just, take it out. If it's, it looks so bad, sometimes it's just cheaper, just take it out, and then you don't have this welcome to Salem that, paint's peeling, it's got graffiti or whatever. And I know that there are a couple others around the city that are in similar repair. When you, and this isn't necessarily a gateway, but when you come from Kaiser into Salem, over there by the Fred Meyer, the Welcome to Kaiser sign is beautiful with irises. The other side, the Welcome to Salem sign, is, or it says Enjoy Salem or something, kind of similar repair. And And I may have an item for the wish list, but I just didn't know that we've had this discussion in the past,
Right.
but I didn't know where we stood with that.
I think a wish list item would be the right direction to go, and then we could come back with some ideas for how much it would cost.
Was that a motion?
Is this the appropriate time to make that motion?
It works. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I'll just make a motion to, for staff to come back with some costs associated with repairing or doing something to upgrade our gateway. And I think that would be probably Portland Road. I think there's one on South Commercial, is that right? And I don't know if there are any other significant ones where people would be coming off the freeway. Okay, thanks.
And is that gateway signage?
Because those areas have, there's signs, there's flowers, there may be other things involved, so whatever staff might come up with would be great. Some
Okay.
ideas.
Was that a second from Member
second.
Bednarz?
Yes.
Okay, motion on the floor, second. Discussion?
I just wanted to say, though I represent South Salem, I have put a lot of time into West Salem. We've looked at the gateway, trying to get signs, trying to brand, trying to improve the image of our community so that people can identify it as the gateway to the wine, whatever it needs to be. The greater minds are going to think of things tonight, but that's the number one thing, is keep things clean, keep them looking good, because that's what people see when they first come in. I agree. It's a small issue. It's a small item in the budget, but I think it's one of those important ones.
Okay, any other discussion on the motion?
I have a
Madam Mayor.
question. My question, maybe Dan, maybe Councillor Clem can help me. There was work being planned for an entranceway in West Salem, and I know that we were talking with Terry Kelly and Salem Electric, and I'm wondering where that project is. Do you remember?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, the issue came up with how it was designed, and it's sitting in a line-of-sight triangle in traffic. ODOT didn't like it where it was. It would have obscured traffic.
Oh,
and
that was the issue.
So the intent of the West Salem Advisory Board, I believe, is to still look at what is appropriate then. And so the gateway sign is still an issue that they'd like to address. So this motion, if supported by these funds, would be appropriate and would represent what we still need, in that ward.
Okay, thanks. So this motion then is just for signage, not for beautification of the strips along the roadways? Am I understanding that correctly?
I guess my motion is, what's the cost to repair, maintain, do something with those entranceways? And it could be just signage, but there's some landscaping that goes with it, and maybe we have some options.
Good.
Maybe we can only do part of it this year or something. So I'd love to see a range of options.
Good, I'd support that for sure. Okay, thanks.
Member Bailey?
Well, yes, maybe it's the planner in me, but it seems like getting to Salem, there's a lot of different routes you can take. And the costs for any one of these routes could be significant. So I see the need for some sort of strategy that links together what we're doing on Portland Road to improve it, coming in, working with ODOT. So I would be more inclined to put a little bit of money into some sort of, at least some strategy of what are the major gateways, what could be done given what's there now, what do we need, because there's a lot of ways to slice this thing, and throwing some flowers and a sign at it may be the right thing, but it may not too. So let's be a little more strategic than that.
Member Bailey, that's what I'm thinking we would do, and fortunately, Mark Bechtel, our Parks and Transportation Manager, is here, and would probably partly fall to him to think about that, but it seems like we would want some consistent look, and that we would use in different areas, and then maybe a tiered plan of what can we start with, and then what can we move forward with, unless you are just talking about a sign. Okay.
Member Clem?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know we did some work, and we did develop staff did develop standard signs, but it was just signs, and it really wasn't the the flowery welcome that we want people to see. And really, if we're going to think about this, we got to get involved with Travel Salem. It's a bigger, it's, you know, I don't know how we put a dollar amount on your motion because it could be $2 million. So I think as a wish list item, asking for the information makes sense. I don't know until staff has really had a chance to look at what work they did do and talk with Travel Salem. I would want that to be as well tourism-oriented if at all possible. So, boy, I think if this may not come back right away for us in terms of, but I think Travel Salem should be involved with.
And I think Mr. Bechtel has a quick comment, if that's all right.
Yeah, while he's coming to the podium too, I'm a little concerned about the scope as well, because I think about the gateway of Kubler into South Salem, and it's going to be one of our busiest streets in the city, and it's just blackberries, and it's just nasty. It's disgusting, actually.
Edible landscaping.
It's been getting better because there's been a dedicated group of about 8 volunteers out there every weekend cleaning it up. But I just think we're going to blow this scope up huge if we don't define it.
Very quickly, Mark Bechtel, Parks and Transportation Services Manager. There's 2 jurisdictions of roads that come into Salem. There's many of our major arteries are state highways. And without offending our colleagues at ODOT, they don't have much imagination when it comes to entryways. They have a very deep bureaucracy when it comes to what kinds of signs, what kinds of treatments, what kinds of shrubbery. And so I guess what I would suggest is that if you would like us to come back with some ideas, you know, we can see what can be done on state routes, and we can see what can be done on city routes. We have much more freedom to do things on our city routes like Portland Road, like Kubler, like these other places, Commercial Street, than we do on state highways. So that's one thing. The other is you would want to do something very focused because our general budget for landscaping in the right-of-way is fairly constrained. And as was pointed out, you know, we battle the Scotch broom daily on Kubler. And if it wasn't for volunteers, we'd be losing that battle. So I think you'd want to be looking at something very focused as an entryway treatment with signage, monumental type signage, and landscaping that enhances that. We tried this once before with the top budget, and all we ended up doing was just trying to maintain what we had. And so that would be my recommendation, would be for us to come back to you with some ideas on some focused treatments.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. I would appreciate and welcome some ideas, and maybe they fit into the scope of this year's budget, and maybe there's something to look forward to for another year. But it does concern me when I see our entryways in disrepair, and if we end up with something that's maybe a little larger in scope because we've made a plan and we have some ideas, I still would like to know what can we do in the meantime so that this year in 2013, when people come to the state fair, they don't see a Welcome to Salem sign that is all beat up and torn up. Is it better, like I said, to take it down? Or, I mean, what can we do that's not extremely prohibiting in the meantime as well? So that's why, a range of options might be helpful.
Member Dickey, the particular sign you're referencing to was put up, and it used to be maintained by volunteers. And our understanding is that the volunteers are no longer either able to do it or whatever. But within our existing budget, we can take some immediate steps this year to address that. So if your concern is just that particular sign, we can offline, we can talk about some things we can do within our existing budget this year to address that. If you're talking more about entryways in general, we could come back with you with a plan.
All of
So,
the above.
okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor addressing the existing gateways for staff to come back with some information and some potential line items. Do you feel like you have enough direction if this motion were to pass for what you'd come back with, Mr.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other discussion then before we vote on the motion? Member Benjamin?
Real quick, I'd like to see if we can have the neighborhood association spearhead those efforts and bring in local business to maybe make donations. Then get local volunteers whipped up, and then that just leaves us not have to put much money into it, maybe some materials.
Counselors with paintbrushes.
Member Berger?
During this discussion, I've debated whether I'm going to agree with the motion, and I guess I just worry about scope of this committee, and whether this is the appropriate forum to have this discussion, and we're either talking about a so small budget item that maybe it's not worth, or such a big budget item that I'm not wanting to support the motion because I'm not willing necessarily to go with that big of a change. I think if we're just talking about a sign, I don't want to spend a night talking about it. And if we're talking about a $2 million program, I don't know if in the next 2 weeks we're going to have a good idea of what program to lay that out. I think that's maybe a next year thing. So I think I'm going to not support this motion.
Okay, Member Clem?
Just a clarification of the motion. I thought it was for information. It wasn't a dollar amount. So
That's right.
does that satisfy just the fact that they're just bringing back information, Member Berger?
No, only that we've spent 10 minutes on it, and if she brings back more information, we're going to spend another 2 hours on it. And if it's just a sign, I think we can have a 2-minute conversation offline and maybe get it fixed. And if it's a $2 million item, then I'm not really willing to go down that road. So I don't necessarily see the benefit of this, although I'm not strongly opposed to that. I guess I'm just letting you know why I'm not supporting it.
Understood. Any other discussion? All right, I'll call for the question. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All against, say nay. Nay. Motion passes, 2 dissensions. Member Dickey, you were on the floor. Did that done? Okay. I think Member Bennett was next.
Just very briefly, I wanted to just follow up on Member Berger's comment regarding the $80,000 city-sponsored signature festivals. It's great. You know, this actually is something we have wanted to do with the TOT fund for years, because it has gotten itself over the years, like any fund like this, hidebound. And it is not, it has been unable, and we saw it with Travel Salem at one point where they wanted to bring in a large conference, but they needed some money, and we really had no place to go but come to council, move, I don't know, $40,000, $45,000 into a nimble fund so they'd be able to do some things they needed to do to attract this conference. This really gives us a chance, I think, to see new events, and I thought listening really closely to the comments from the hotel motel folks was the lodging industry was really good. Events are a big deal.
They are.
And I mean, we can talk about a marathon, but it'll be just talk if we don't get some seed money and get it going. And there are so many other opportunities where people have great ideas, they need some help, and this group budgets once a year. So when you come up with your next great idea, you can't do it this year. You can't get near it until you go back through this entire budget cycle to get here. This creates real opportunity for really excellent programs, and it isn't city stuff. It's people like you who are full of great ideas, coming up with something, coming in, saying, here's my idea, here's my little business or my big business plan. Help me out. It's a great opportunity for the city. We've really tried to do this for years. The other thing that's happened in this budget, I just want to point it out, is the city's contribution to the conference center reserve came to an end in this budget. That has been going on, it seems like, forever. Yeah, and to see that finally resolved puts $300,000 or $250, whatever it is, back into the program. I am really pleased to see that happen.
Okay. And, you know, it's happened in the 7 years that the convention center's been open. As I understand, people thought it would happen maybe in 10 to 15 years, if ever. So I think it's been just wonderful that we're at this point now.
Member Danke.
Actually, that's what I was going to comment on, because, you know, Councilor Clem and I have been here since that started.
Yes.
Prior to that, my first 2 years, we had a lot of discussion on the potential for a conference center, convention center to actually suck into the general fund. And this was one of those roadblocks to protect general fund. And it's a stellar thing that will actually do us great benefit over the long term on being able to have it not end up like a gateway site.
Yes, that's right.
Member Bailey was next.
This-
Sorry, it's
just
been a
to-
while.
That's all right. Just to help me understand, on page 194, the list, under conference and tourism marketing, it doesn't say Travel Salem, but that supports Travel Salem?
Correct.
'Cause I-
That's what the category has always been, but it's our destination marketing organization. So
Okay.
that
'cause I was looking for
550,000.
Travel Salem.
Yeah, no.
The other question is just under city programs, the list for 2013 to 14. So these are, how are they selected? Was their application made and somebody winnowed them down, or?
These particular city
Well, I know we do,
programs,
but, you know, they weren't.
these are capital improvement programs, so that comes from our facility maintenance.
Okay.
And these are for, as you see, the type of items that are listed are repairs to city-owned facilities.
Okay.
So our historical
So
buildings.
these are city facilities?
That's
The city-owned historical facilities, and these are repairs that are deemed necessary for that year.
Okay, any other comments on the top budget as presented? Nope. All right. Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Snyder. Okay,
Thank you.
it's getting late. Are we good to push through the last three? I would personally love to, so we get them off the list, and we've had staff wait a long time.
Yes, we need to
Okay.
get staff that are connected with two items together.
Been watching as we cycle through. I think we've tried as well. Okay, next we have document services and shops, facility and maintenance by Ms. Monell.
Okay, Connie Manel, Director of IT right now. Thank you. I'll make this as quick as possible. Document Services is a smaller department, a division within IT. It is managed by our GIS manager, Sue Bloom. If you'll notice, there is a decrease of 11.2%, which is very positive. But that decrease is really as a result of material and services going down, as well as we're not purchasing some of the heavy equipment that we've done in the past. As you can see, our mail and courier services represent about 53% of the total division. Copier and fleet management, that is, we have 52 actually, multi-functional copiers in various departments that must be maintained. So this division manages in those. The copy center services, those big books you have in front of you, they have to be reproduced someplace. And we have an excellent staff that will stay weekends and all night to make sure the council gets the budget documents as well as their packages each week. Design services in the published area, we do provide some specialized services for different departments depending upon the need. And as far as significant changes goes, we have seen a reduction in newsletter printing because of the electronic distribution of things. We will continue to evaluate our products and services. And of course, there's the postal service fees increases that seem like we're always experienced. And we're also reviewing our policies and procedures too. Our future outlook, of course, we want to maintain a positive fund balance. We just took over the jury summons program from courts, and that was with the mail out of the different summonses. It's been moved successfully to this division, and what that has done is saved courts 2 to 3 days every other week in terms of actual staff time. So those folks in courts have more time devoted to the court needs versus mailing out these notices. So this has been a positive addition. We're also looking at tools for operational efficiencies. And of course, once again, we have the postal services changes. The next is the shop facilities maintenance, and this is a small budget. It does not support any people, but this is this is the budget that is responsible for the maintenance of the shops complex. which includes the grounds maintenances, the repair of the fences. Special projects for next year include some things like sewer repairs. We have some update in the PA system, and we also have some security systems that need to be repaired, particularly with cameras. And there is a complete list in your budget too. And that concludes my presentation on this.
Thank you. Public comment? Seeing none. Questions from the Budget Committee? No, Ms. Manel, thank you for being brief. And I have to say, I keep coming back to these. I love them, but seeing the program budgets from year to year, I love it being able to see the things that decreases are results of more efficient processes and so on and so forth. And that's a savings of close to $200,000. So I appreciate your work on that. Any other discussion from the Budget Committee? Member Danke?
Just a quick one in regards to the termination of a lot of the neighborhood stuff. How much did that impact?
The neighborhood newsletters, as far as the...
Is that a big portion or not?
To my knowledge, it hasn't had a big impact upon it yet. Our Sue, or, pardon, can you? We have Tiffany Corbett, our management analyst. She's our numbers person.
About 20,000.
About 20,000? Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? Wish list items?
Yeah. Skip that.
Nope. All right. Thank you very much, Ms. Manel. Next, we have the self-insurance fund, and we will stick with you.
Okay. So this is the self-insurance fund, and this is a large fund. It supports 7 people, and the total combined budget is around $33.7 million. Within this budget, there are really no significant changes other than the cost of insurance increasing and of the personal services increasing due to PERS. In the benefits side, that supports 3 people, and the risk management side supports 7 full-time employees. As you can see, the cost is on our side because the health and welfare benefits is so expensive. 74% of the entire risk management budget is associated with our medical cost, vision and dental, and our third-party TPA. Our civil and tort claims account for about 10% of this. This is our claims against the city and where the lawsuits are handled, and if there are payment received or by the city, this is the fund that it comes out of. Safety and workers' compensation. Workers' compensation, we're self-insured in this program as well. It's very stable, as well as our tort claims. It has been for the last 2 years. We're real pleased with that. Within the workers' compensation is obviously the safety component of our program too. Property and excess insurance. We have a lot of property throughout the city that must be covered, and we renew each year, and Ed Fisher, our risk manager, does a terrific job in ensuring that the city is properly covered, and he has saved thousands of dollars by renegotiating some of our excess insurances, and we're really appreciative of the work that he does on this side. As far as significant changes, of course, there's the continual state and health reform mandates that we have to deal with over the next 3 to 4 to 5 years. Right now, we have a third-party administrator for our medical insurance, and we're out to bid on that. That costs the city approximately $500,000 to administer our claims, our medical claims. We are out to bid, and we'll be making a decision whether or not we will be changing in the next month or so. If we change third-party administrators, there's a huge amount of work that will go with that, and that will be with an effective date as of January 1st. Of course, increases in medical expenses is the key for not only the workers' compensation and the health, but we see continuing increase in the healthcare industry and as well as workers' compensation. And of course, our primary goals for everything is to try and manage our costs as well for workers' compensation, tort, and benefit side of it. This slide, I get questions, well, how do we compare with other places? And this is just a sample. We do a lot of utilization studies, and we have a lot of information, but as you can see, we have total employees covered is around 1,200, when our total membership is around 3,500. Our actual medical increases, the cost of our claims increased by 16.6% in 2012. The hospital, this is just a sample, hospital utilization. And this shows the city and UMR as our current third-party administrator. Their book of business is a national is a national number here. So our admits per 1,000, the city's at 41.5 versus nationally, we're looking at 61.1, which is very good. Going down to the days per 1,000, we're at 131 versus nationally, they're at 219, which is another good sign. Our ER visits, it's at per 1,000 is 177, and nationally it's at 260. So overall, hospital utilization is pretty good. We've had 13 large claims, which total close to $3 million. We had 13 last year, of which 10 of those 13 were carryover from last year's. We had 3 drop off because they were eligible for Social Security, and 3 new additions. So we do purchase excess insurance for our large claims, and these claims are over $100,000. We're self-insured for the first $150,000, then excess kicks in. So in 2012, we did get a rebate back from our excess care, close to $1 million. Our cost for excess insurance runs about $2 million each year. In terms of annual claims, we're at around 40,000, and the cost for our claims was around 13 million last year. This is kind of interesting. Employees, 47% of that cost was our employees' dependents. We had a little higher this time because we had a couple really sick children that hit the stop loss as well. So that had an impact upon our claims. We carve out our prescription drug cost, and we've actually seen a decrease this last year. And once again, you can see just a comparison what the cost for a typical cost of prescription for the city would be $75. The book of business would be $85. What the city paid and would be $60, and the book of business would be $71. We have made some significant changes in our health program over the years where we've passed more of the cost out to the employee. And as you can see, the employees paid in our prescriptions is $16 versus the book of business nationally runs about $16. One of the things our employees have been very good about is using generic utilization, which is about approximately 82% use generic drugs. And that's helped reduce and keep our costs down in the prescription drugs as well. Workers' compensation, this is just a real quick chart. This is obviously our 3 largest departments. We have police, fire, and public works. There's a 5-year average. In 10-11, we had an increase in cost, and fire really paid attention to those costs. The next year, all the departments started to pay a lot more attention to the workers' compensation side of it. And for 11-12, our costs are really significantly down on the workers' compensation, and they're doing a great job.
That started happening when we started putting their costs in their budget.
Imagine how that happens.
Paid attention. Our liability claims also is way down. Of course, sometimes our tort claims, our liability are driven by weather-permitted flooding and ice storms and those type of things. Overall, our liability claims are down. Our fund is very stabilized as well, and we're not anticipating any increases. And as far as future outlook, I've talked about the third party. We're looking at plan design and healthcare reform. Risk management wants to redo the risk management manual, and we're focusing on the safety and wellness component of it to try and reduce our claims as well. And that concludes my presentation.
All right, question from the mayor?
I wonder if you could explain why we are going out for a new third-party administrator, or did I miss something there?
No, we've had some problems associated with payment of claims, and we've had UMR for 2 years now, and they haven't taken care of really of those claim problems yet. I met with them last week, and of course they're guaranteeing the world now, but they are a competitive bid for the process. But whether we stay with UMR or there may be a third-party administrator that may be cheaper and can do just as good a job too. So we haven't decided whether we're going to go out, but we have had some problems in terms of claims adjusting.
I see. So this is something that the city may decide to do. It would seem to me that you should have the latitude to find the best one that you can without feeling like you have to pay the least amount of money if they're not doing a good job on the other end. But
Right,
that's
we-
up to you. so.
Yes, we do that. We look at what the services are and what it will cost. But when we have a number of employee complaints and union complaints over time and it's not been resolved or they're not paid accurately, we have to look at another provider.
Oh, absolutely. I'm not being critical at all of the
No, I know
idea. I
that.
think it's a good idea, and you have to do it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay.
Any other questions? Nope. All right, thank you. Next and lastly for the night, the trust funds. Ms. Jacobs will take us through this.
Thank you. The budget associated with the city's trust funds begins on page 325 of Book 1 in your volume with descriptions of the 33 funds. The line item resources and expenditures budgets on page 329 are an aggregate of the 33 funds. The proposed resources budget is $6.82 million, and the proposed expenditures budget is $2.48 million. Each of the trust funds has a tie or a connection to a city department. For instance, 8 funds are connected to Public Works, 6 to the Police Department, and 7 to the library. Expenditures from trust funds follow the designation or direction of the donor or are made within federal, state, or local requirements depending on the source of funds. Any questions?
I'm seeing no questions. All right. Thank you very much, Ms. Jacobs.
A lot of trust in.
All right, so that concludes us for the business. Any other discussion generally for tonight? Nope, no more public testimony for future budget issues. All right, seeing none and no other business, we'll adjourn for the evening.
Is the sun still out? Oh.